All right, I would like to call the meeting to order. It's Tuesday, January 28th, 2025 at 7:11 p.m. Lanya, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Art Johnson?
Yes.
Foster here.
Yes.
Burns? Here. Spurlock? Here. Moore? Here. Kim? Is absent. Carter?
Here.
Motion to go into open session, 7:12 p.m.
Thank you. It appears we do not have public comment tonight, so our first item will be Superintendent Overview.
Yep, so I have just a very quick deck here. Sometimes we do kind of what's the big idea in between, opening every presentation. So we thought we'd start with what's the big idea. I think we have a couple of decks, and I think, there we go. And I'll just present these very quickly tonight, and I think we have, yes, just the, all three of you coming up? Okay, so come on up, Lanya, Ebony, and Amanda are coming up. So we can start on the next slide. So we have three quick updates here. So what's the big idea tonight? We got presentations. We have Lincoln and Longfellow here to present their school improvement plans. And so here, under the Transformation Goal 2, this We Design for All, we'll be hearing about, again, how our school is centering the experiences of our focal student cohort so that we are changing how they experience school and learning from that to change and create a better school for everyone. So really excited. Welcome to Lincoln and Longfellow. We also have then an update on our math pilot resource. And so Dr. Lawrence and Dr. De Leon will be coming up to give the board a preview of that work that's coming up. And then we just wanted to give you an update. There's a lot of need and a lot of pressure to communicate quickly with the national changes, and so we wanted to take this time to kind of slow down and show you how we're thinking about making sure that we are being thoughtful about our communication. So you'll see a graphic here that kind of shows you how we're thinking about that, and Amanda will talk about that. And we've been talking for some time now about our annual celebration calendar. So Lanya and Ebony will speak a little bit about how we're thinking about our annual celebration and what's coming up. So welcome to the teams. We're looking forward to hearing from you. And on the next slide is what I talked about. And Amanda, we can kind of walk and talk through this together. So really, I sent out that communication, really making sure, how are we making sure that we're being thoughtful, coherent, clear, and calm, even as we get new information that is sometimes jarring. So Amanda, if you want to walk us through, and I can jump in, kind of how we're thinking about making sure that we maintain our trust in the community of being a place where you can get good information.
Yeah, so I think just with the headlines last week and just kind of the flurry of information that was coming at us, we also were receiving a lot of questions from staff and families who were understandably confused, concerned, just wanting to know what we were doing, and there was really an urgency around our communication and what we were going to say, what we were going to do from a procedure standpoint. And something that we've been talking about a lot in our leadership team is exactly what Dr. Shaw said, is just really making sure that we do feel that sense of urgency, and I think we want to make that clear, but also making sure that we really understand what's coming at us and how that impacts our districts. So sometimes what that means is we need to slow down just a little bit and make sure that we're looking at everything really closely, and then thinking really carefully about how that impacts our board policy, what we're doing here. So we put together this visual just to kind of show how we're thinking about that. So anytime we have a policy change, and that could be in the form of, an executive order, for example, that comes down, that creates some questions about procedures that we might have in our district. That's being taken by Dr. Shaw and our senior leadership team. We're looking at that from a few different angles, from a legal standpoint, also from board policy, making sure that we understand the impact. We're then trying to take all of that information and put that together in a really clear and coherent way so that when we get to the next level, which is our school level implementation, we're in a good position to communicate all of those changes and what the actual impact is for our staff and our families. And of course, as part of that, keeping the board updated along the way. So again, at the school level implementation, once we've sort of done that work here, and again, we're moving quickly, but also carefully, we're sharing guidance sort of in a cascaded manner. We're making sure that district leadership here, so that's our senior directors, our directors who oversee kind of our big operational departments and core instruction, that they understand, and then that's going out to the school principals and APs. And we're making sure that we're able to support them as best as we can in carrying out those procedures. From there, we then look at communicating with our district and school staff, including union leads, and that's been something we've been really intentional about, is making sure that as we're going through these processes that we are stopping to communicate with the union leads to make sure that we have really solid alignment and clarity in terms of those expectations. So once that written communication goes out to staff, then we are pushing out all of that communication to families. And just wanted to stress that the main way that we communicate with families right now will be through email and updates on our district website. In terms of social media, I think that is just not the place where we are putting like official information unless it's like an emergency notification. The district is no longer really using X in any official way. Where we still have our account, it's there, but it's just not a place where our families are really, and the platform is, I don't even know the right word for it, but we're not on there right now, and that's actually pretty consistent with our community partners as well. So Facebook, we do still post to, but again, that official information, like we shared out on Friday, that's really going to be coming through email and our website, school communication. So I would encourage families to stay plugged in that way. So that's that. We can pause. I don't know if there are any questions about this. Yeah.
So first, I want to thank you for being thoughtful on this, because once a communication goes out to everyone, making sure that everyone internally is able to then communicate is really appreciated. Mm-hmm. If folks are members of the community but no longer have students here or just don't have students here, what communication can they subscribe to get information?
They can subscribe to our district newsletter. So we have a subset of that audience that are their community subscribers, so they can still get that email. We also post our newsletters, and oftentimes like the big news articles or whatever, we're posting that on the website. And I know that was something that was flagged even by, I think, our partners in the PTO Council, just making sure that we are getting that website updated. So that's something we're going to be a little bit more intentional about moving forward. So our website is a good place. And we're always posting the Friday edition of the newsletter as a link under news, so people can always look there too.
Mm-hmm. And we do have, although it's not about these kinds of communications, but even like tonight, what's shared out, the board highlights is another level of really just making sure we're trying to share as much information proactively that's relevant and timely with the community. And that is something that has been really well received and gets up to like 10,000 opens when we've been sending out the board highlights. So on this next slide, I'll turn it over to Lanye and Emily.
So in keeping in line with our approach to clear communication with our staff, families, and our community, there's been a call from our community around our annual celebration calendar and our annual cultural identity celebrations. And so in order to be clear and center around some common themes from our district leadership team, we're looking at 3 buckets of framework rooted in student voice, career-centered focus, and community-wide arts and culture. Around student voice, that has a lot to do with student-led conversations and showcasing of student product. Around our career-centered focus, this is around our professionals and cultural figures in and outside of the community and how they come in during these recognition months and support and lift the work of these cultural events that are happening. And then community-wide arts and cultures. This is across all of our partners, including our schools, where we have school-wide assemblies and events like that where we're coming together around a common cultural theme. And so in line with Black History Month starting in a few days, we wanted to center our framework around these 3 buckets. And so we're starting to see school-specific, some events that are starting to get planned and underway for Black History Month. And so we're excited and looking forward to what we'll come back to February 11th, just kind of letting you know how it's going as we begin to celebrate Black History Month. And then we'll also look to bring this framework forward as we move into other cultural identity months. And we'll look at how we're going to start celebrating those in this framework. So more to come, but this is the starting point in how we're pulling together to be more transparent in how we're lifting cultural identity, starting with Black History.
And also thinking about the portrait in this context, so we're really excited and really fortunate to have community partners who think intentionally about events and programs that really kind of support our students through the identity celebrations and also even outside of that. So obviously that last statement, we believe learning happens everywhere in Oak Park, is one that we are deeply rooted in. And so a preview for our February 11th presentation, when we kind of update everyone on the portrait, will be kind of those explicit connections that we've made via the Oak Park Public Library, the Park District Local Park, Oak Park Ed Foundation, and we continue to kind of make sure that we're including our community partners in our planning and kind of thinking through how to make the portrait live throughout the community. So we're really excited about that work, and more to come February 11th.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for this team? All right, thank you so
Thanks.
much.
All right, that takes us to the Lincoln and Longfellow School Improvement Logic Model.
Yes.
presentations.
So who's coming up first? Longfellow, okay. So Luis coming up with Longfellow. Patrick Robinson is here in spirit, but not, he's watching. In very comfortable clothing with popcorn and
No.
a Stanley, I'm sure. So,
That's good.
Alrighty, so good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight. I'm very proud to have the opportunity to share with you Longfellow and Lincoln Logic Models. And just starting our presentation, we have a little framing to do. And then also want to acknowledge the great team that we have been working pretty closely in supporting our schools and really making all of this a reality. So for today's agenda, we have the school improvement framing, and then also Longfellow's logic model and Lincoln School Improvement Logic Model presentations. So everything that we do is framing in our equity policy with the intent to really provide that equitable access for students to that rigorous and relevant curriculum. We are committed through the UDL process, Universal Design for Learning, to really redesign and really think about improving and really making a difference in the way that we operate and improving our learning experiences for the students. So this also aligns to you want to speak to that? Or
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So this also aligns to a transformational goal in the area we design for all, specifically in the elementary core instructions foundations, as part of the goals that we are concentrating on. In addition to that, we have our goal 2A, elementary school core instruction foundations, which actually is tasked to really look into how do we develop that leadership and that opportunity to transform and improve the core instruction as defined in frameworks for teaching, and based also on the universal designs for learning, with an evidence into standards base to really understand what the content matters and how it had to be a focus on that. And then also making sure that we have access to that cultural and linguistically appropriate content that is relevant for students, that we know that it translates into engagement. And then also the opportunity to also support into the Tier 1 core instruction, the students' positive social and emotional, as we embedded this into our daily learning experiences. With that also, our teams are focused on really concentrating and taking the time to really reflect on those practices, especially in our focal cohort, with the intent to improve everybody's learning experiences. As we get close to our students, we're going to be able to learn and troubleshoot those pieces to improve our systems and the learning experiences for all. So the focal cohort is very important because as I was mentioning, if we concentrate on that, we are breaking those barriers where everybody will benefit. So we are improving the experience for all as we concentrate on this analysis, this reflection, and we really rethink our systems and the way that we work. So right now, our district level focal student cohort are all our flag students with IPs and qualify for free and reduced lunch. And at our school level focal student cohort, we also have Black students or multilingual students. That can include a combination with IPs or free and reduced, as we have a target of 10% of their student population. So that's where they get to choose how they want to come up with their makeup. But we are identifying those student groups as we identify those groups as the group of students who are having like some barriers that we need to be thinking about to improve that will benefit everybody. This might change through time as we continue improving in our sites and in our learning experiences. And based on this data, this might shift through time. Also to remind everybody that our logic model also is based on those outcomes, but also with the intent of really identifying those strategies and resources, and then also the evidence that we're very intentional about the work that is happening to produce the desired outcomes. Then our leadership focus as well is about, and this is also helping out to Frank. We have shared this with our sites as they prepare to come develop those logic models, but also to prepare to present to you, about really taking the time to reflect on the core instruction for all. So how are we really doing those strategies to really improve that learning experiences for students? Then also how we're engaging with our teachers through that collaborative process and our families as well. And then with that, how we're transforming the experiences for students, such as, for example, right here, how we're utilizing some of our teams, such as our Black Excellent Teaching of PART membership, or BTOP, to inform and really support some of these conversations as well, and bring that, elevating the voice to provide that improvement and that intentional focus in our designs. At the same time, Mr. Robinson and myself, we spend time with our sites, like working with professional development with our leadership and staff. We meet with them on a regular basis. We are collaborating and calibrating opportunities for the building leaders. We are spending time reviewing like processes, teaching practices, and things in this sense. Then also we are concentrating in the teacher leaders and really supporting that visible work products. We are really continuing the collaboration with the principals and with the teams to make sure that actually that we have a focus on the work, and really that the time spent and that work is impacting as reflected into the site. And then with that, the implementation of the logic model and the academic, social, emotional data and actual planning. We have data dives every trimester, and we go in depth with our teams, really reflecting in those practices and really connecting in all these areas. So as we mentioned, we had the previous time opportunity to learn about Hatch and Whittier. Today we have Longfellow and Lincoln, and in February we'll bring by an Irving, and in April 22 we'll finish with Matt and Holmes. In addition, you can see in the bottom, we also are giving updates on our ELA pilot resource. Today we'll be doing a math pilot resource update, and also in April 22nd we'll come back with an ELA update for you as well. And with number 2,
Thank you. Hi all, Amy Jefferson, principal of Longfellow here. We also have our wonderful 3rd grade teacher, Miss Allison Nelson, who's joining us this evening. And also Ms. Morris, who is also here as assistant principal to help us talk through not only our logic model, but also where we are as a school. The whole purpose is thinking about that design for all and then drilling down into some of the really intentional steps that we've taken to ensure that our focal cohort is something that we're paying close attention to. This is our BL Building Leadership team. We meet weekly. One of the main priorities of our team is ensuring that the specific strategies that we implement in regards to UDL align with our overall goals and our specific focuses for our focal cohort students. So the conversations, the strategies, the data, student data that we look at is then utilized and brought back to PLCs where we have really robust discussions, and we're continuing to provide professional development around that. I know that there was a recent professional development for PLCs that was given last week. And so we have these conversations about what does it look like for our students to show up in the classrooms every day, and what are some of the implementations that we're having and making sure that they have a successful experience overall. So one of the conversations that we have had amongst our BLT and across the school level since the beginning of the year is this overall shift in mindset around adult practices and how that successfully improves student performance, whether it's social emotional or whether it's academic. So we have done a lot of work around this and unpacking what this means and what this looks like. And part of the work that we're showing today is the process that we're planning to also take in implementing certain steps to ensure that this is something we continue to monitor our progress on. So as a high-level overview of overall logic model goals, in regards to ELA and math, again, as I mentioned, really focusing on universal design for learning, but in regards to that tier 1 practice. So bringing in conversations around what does it look like for students to have flexible learning, to have opportunities for peer-led discussions, making sure that, you know, what are some of the criteria we use when we are scoring and looking at specific assessments, how are our questions, incorporating Bloom's taxonomy. So these are all the things that go into our math and ELA components. For belonging and engagement, we have the Panorama Survey, which has oftentimes grounded our discussion around what our students are experiencing around the school. In previous years, it was just 3rd through 5th grade, but now the Panorama Survey has expanded for K-2 to be involved in as well, which is super helpful for us. In the discussions that we've had about our overall logic model goals, when we looked at demographics and some of the groups that maybe there's still a gap in, we've noticed a primary gap with our Black students. So the red is those who have more than 2 points away from their goal. Yellow is less than 2 points away from their goal. Blue is students who either met or exceeded their goal. Now, even though as we talked about our SY25 goal, the overall purpose is the question is, how do we make sure that more of our students, more of our Black students, in order to positively influence all of our students, if we can reach this group that we've been trying to reach, how would this help and positively impact the rest of the school as well?
So as mentioned before, our focal cohort is our Black students. And the reason for this is because the disparities continue to exist. We have this data based on the Panorama survey and also just the academic progress we're collecting through like map testing and things like that. So we're working with our Tier 1 practices as well as UDL strategies to help all of our students, which will also in turn help to reach our goal of 50% of our focal cohort students meeting their individualized math growth goals in both ELA and math.
For our belonging and engagement, just a few ideas or some of the strategies and things that are school-wide that we do to help increase our belonging and engagement are our positive office referral Fridays. We do affinity groups and student Girls on the Rise. We have Longfellow Pride, Student Council. We also are very strategic in our lesson planning when it comes to different thematic units, when it comes to students being able to identify with the material that they're being presented with, and of course, trimester celebrations, which this year, our first trimester celebration, we got to slime Amy, so we'll see what the second trimester celebration brings. We're ready to move on. Okay.
Can I ask what Positive Office Referral Friday is?
Oh, sure. People from all around the building notice little things that kiddos do, just to let them know that someone's always watching. So it could be, you were helpful, today you really used your words to describe or to express your feelings, or today I saw you helpful in the lunchroom. So any little tidbits any teacher can give a kiddo. And on Fridays, I play a Friday song, and then I do this huge, all right, it's time, and they really get excited. It's like, come on down for the Price is Right. So, and then they take a picture in front of our building, like main glass bulletin board, and then we post that in the hallways.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So when we looked at our data and we kind of noticed some of the disparities and continuous gap, I think the conversation stemmed from, okay, well, how do we get to the groundwork of making sure that we're not only building the confidence of our focal cohort students, but also helping them really feel like they belong, being really intentional about their experience at Longfellow, and then using that to increase in their Tier 1 practices overall. So the BLT team came up with interviewing all of our focal cohort students individually. Now, this is the first time that we've done it this way. In years prior, there's been different ways that we have gotten some data and insight and street level data about our students. It could be picking 10 students, it could be focusing on one per grade level, but this year the BLT team decided, well, why don't we get everybody's perspective on their feelings and how do they really feel a sense of belonging? And not only that, but how can we craft specific grade level questions that are age appropriate, that are crafted by our teachers and our staff who care about the kids, and that gives us additional insight into their personal experience at Longfellow. So the Panorama survey is a really good anchor for that work, but even more so as getting that specific feedback about Longfellow was really helpful. And again, it was the first time for us doing it this way. But the purpose was, once we were able to decide those questions, it was about 4 or 5 questions per grade level. We, staff members, were able to interview the students to build a level of comfort and just like them feeling safe with a familiar face around the building. And then we took that data and we disaggregated it. We looked for trends, looked for specific themes, and then we put those specific themes into next steps for adult practices in accordance with the mindset that we've been trying to really focus on this year. So from the interviews, we looked over it and we went over and we picked out glows and grows. So a few of the glows were like, PKP students love coming to school. First grade students reported that their favorite part of the day was learning new things. Our kinder students really enjoy socializing. They also feel very safe and in touch with their teachers. Third grade students report having positive relationships with not just their teacher, but many teachers and staff in the building. So that was great that we were really excited about. Our second grade students reported that they know that their teachers care about them and that they love math time and specials. Our fifth grade students were able to name adults in the school that they trust, which is really big when they get to that age where they're trying to figure things out. And fourth graders enjoy their friendships and report having Black students as friends, which sometimes can be a bit hard for them to do because they're not the majority in their classes. So for them to
be able to find people that they can identify with and name them as friends, we thought that was really good to point out. So of course there were areas for growth as well. And so one thing that we noticed was PKP, talked about how they have a half-day program and how some kiddos, could benefit from just having the AM sessions and using the afternoon to rest. We did notice tons of evidence in the area of conflict resolution skills for 4th and 5th grade, being a space where we needed to do some growing, in ways that we welcome new students to Oak Park, to our community and to the school. Some kiddos in the elder grades were able to say that, I don't really understand what this question means, or some of the questions were a bit too broad or complex for the students to understand. And then also some of the feedback we got from the interviews were that lack of executive functioning skills was really heavy this year, particularly in the primary grades.
So once we were able to kind of look at what are some of the things that we know students are enjoying about their experience, and what are some things that we want to continue making improvements on, across the board, we came out with about 4 or 5 different areas. Apart from the social, academic, and instructional groups, SAGE groups, those are more admin focused. Everything else are specific things that Longfellow teachers, staff, anybody can implement throughout the building and within their own classrooms. So in regards to these specific categories, we then decided to focus on, well, what are some specific, like, actionable things that adults can do, that we can do as starting points to help improve their overall experience.
And so to instill in students a growth mindset, we encourage the productive struggle, and there's many ways in which teachers are doing that. We do use pre and post-test check-ins and constructive feedback. But cultivating mistake tolerance, I think, is really important, because kids, like, a lot of them do not like to make mistakes, and that causes this frustration. But showing kids through building thinking classrooms, which is a philosophy, there's a whole book on it that myself and some of my colleagues have read. We actually had a book club on it a few years ago. We discussed that is a philosophy where students are participating in, like, group problem solving every day in math, and that we don't erase anything. If we make a mistake, we actually just cross it off, and we don't worry about it, and we can look at what other people are doing on their boards to get ideas and understand that it is okay to make a mistake, and we're seeing others make mistakes, and we're not quickly erasing that so no one else can see. And my students in particular, I've seen grown a lot through that happening every single day. So I think that that is one great way, and again, other colleagues at Longfellow are doing that as well, to really encourage that productive struggle. And through the focal cohort interviews, we learned that a lot of our focal cohort students really wanted more, like, play-based things, even the older kids, games, things like that. So they mentioned, like, Reflex Math, which is an app we have to help with fact fluency, wanting more time with that. So we've been allowing some more time during our math win blocks, which is what I need, so that they can practice that, because we know that was something that they liked, and then they can meet with the teacher to kind of go over some of those skills. Also doing things like learning escape rooms or scavenger hunts, where you hide different, like, questions around the room. They're really into that. Something that my grade level did for ELA, because I know I've been talking a lot about math, was a whole grade trivia competition where, when we were doing nonfiction reading, every class was given some articles, some nonfiction articles. We read them, we practiced our note taking, and then we did a competition amongst all of the 3rd grade classes with questions from the articles, so they could use their notes, so they could talk to, like, their little mini teams, and they enjoyed that. So we've been doing different trivia competitions related to things that we're learning, and they're enjoying that a lot.
If I can add one thing too, in regards to growth mindset being one of the main focuses, from the questions, one of the things that we found was that students had a lot to say about the easy things that they loved, or the things that they felt they didn't really have to try very hard on. And so one of the questions that we thought about was, well, how can we help them learn to love the things that maybe they had to navigate and get challenged in order to experience, and come out on the other side of it. So that is the reason why we really wanted to focus on that growth mindset aspect. And in regards to the play-based learning, I think one of the things that Ms. Morris and I have talked about was, well, if we want students to have a really positive experience and fun, engaged experience with what they're learning in the classroom, then that also circles back to what is the professional development that teachers are getting, is that engaging? Is that something that they can feel is fun and learn from? One of the things that we've recently done with our BLT to test it out first was a implicit bias trivia game that Ms. Morris did a really great job of running. And we wanted to see like, how is this gonna work? And so we plan to make this on a bigger scale, because these are conversations, again, we need to have. They're also helping us as adults be really reflective about the actions and influences we have with our kiddos and their experiences overall. And yeah, so we're just trying to experiment with these different aspects of it.
So lunchtime, lunch recess can be a really tough time for many students because it's very unstructured, and particularly some of our focal cohort students. So some of the things that we're doing to help with some of the lunchtime struggles are lunch supervisors continuing check-ins on the playground. We have a lot of staff members and teachers that are on the playground, and so it's helpful to be able to check in with your students or students in your grade level regularly. We do have a few students who have recess support plans, and what that means is students who are regularly coming back with conflict or being upset about something. We just do a quick check-in with these students. What do you plan to do today? And they tell us, and if it sounds like that's a great idea, then we say, okay, go with that. And if they're not sure, I don't know what to do, then we like kind of give them some options. Well, why don't you try so-and-so's doing this, that, or all these different options. And then at the end of the recess, we'll check in with them again just to see how'd your recess go? So if there were any conflicts or anything that needs to be addressed, it can be handled right then and there, and it doesn't carry over into class or home or the next day with those students. And we also discussed in previous years what we had an alternative lunch recess for especially students with sensory needs who would get overstimulated. And we as a BLT have been talking about trying to re-implement that for students who would need it, and that would be not as a punitive thing, but like as an option, and parents would sign off saying, I think that this is a good choice. And then in terms of executive functioning support, we provide in the upper grades like accordion folders for organizational things for them, and lots of parent updates. We use checklists and timers for students that to help support them in their learning and to keep things organized. So,
after this particular focus that we've had for this year, the goal is to continue asking questions. It's to continue trying to figure out, one, what do we learn from this process? We want this to be something that continues, that we continue to monitor progress on. What are we learning about, the specific achievement gaps that we're seeing this year with our Black students, but even more so in relation to all of the other groups or any other groups that we have or demographics within the school. How are we positively influencing their relationship with their peers? And that goes back to even the lunch and recess plans that we have, teachers offering to have mini lunch sessions with their kiddos to help them resolve certain conflicts. Those things go a long way in regards to helping them really feel a sense of belonging and feeling included. And how are non-Black teachers increasing that engagement practice, their engagement practices as well? How are we also equipping them with the confidence and knowledge to be able to really engage and drill down into building that relational community with their students? So we do think that in the aspect of designing for all, that if we can really monitor the progress on how we are implementing these practices, how we're shifting that adult mindset, that it'll have a benefit for all the kids, not just Black students. Like the overall is making sure that we can pour into our Tier 1 practices with our UDL focus, and then use our own assessment tools and discussions and professional development to help build a more, just a more inclusive process overall. And that's it. Questions?
I have questions, but it's like the slide is way back there. It was the slide with the scores on it to show yes, nope, yes. So when I looked at this, what I find alarming is that our kindergartner, first and second grade Black students are at least 2, but more, likely more, points behind in reading and math, right?
Yes.
Like, they're never gonna catch up by 3rd grade. And this isn't new. So yes, this data is for SY '25, but we know that our opportunity gap is 40 years old. So what we're seeing here is not, it's historic, right? I love the creativity in your plans to try to help address this. You guys are looking at me like, what is she gonna ask me? I love the creativity in what you are trying to do with your students to engage them, but also to help reduce this. Are you seeing any early wins? Because I know you're doing assessments regularly, like if they finished a particular unit, right? You're doing a pre-assessment, you're doing a post-assessment. So like Bobby, right? So you're doing pre-assessment, post-assessment. Bobby fell into this category. Are you seeing progress such that you anticipate that Bobby's scores for the spring will go up?
I would say for sure, we're seeing progress in certain areas. I think for sure in kinder and fifth, our kinder and fifth grade Black students are really blowing it out the water in regards to their academic aspects. And so we're touching base with fifth grade and kinder. Well, kinder, I think people are like, okay, well, they have so much to learn, right? But even more so, our Black students are really growing in that aspect. And again, fifth grade, they are incorporating different community building pieces in their classroom. They do a lot of that productive struggle growth mindset thing. And so they plan a lot of their lessons. When we have backwards planning sessions, they have a lot of discussion around helping them push through some of those, helping them push through failure and challenges. We know that third grade, as Ms. Nelson mentioned, the thinking critically?
Building thinking classrooms.
Building thinking classrooms and having the conversation with the grade level teams around that particular reading resource. And they've been implementing those things as well with a specific focus on, okay, how are our focal cohort students doing? So we do have some wins that we're definitely seeing. And we are continuing to work with all of the other grade levels on, okay, well, what are we really noticing that we want to highlight that's working here in this specific grade level? Maybe in BLT, we take time to share, and if people are like, hey, we're struggling in this area, right? And we're noticing that our students, especially with this data, they're not progressing. So what is something that someone else has learned or strategy that's working? So I think it depends on where exactly we're looking, but we do have some really good wins and some progress that is being made. And I think that's one of the trickier things about like closing the achievement gap. And I'm also studying this, so for me, I'm really passionate about it. But it is a 40-year plus gap, right? And it's like, well, what are some of those little pieces that we can do to chip away to try to get some of those wins? And, despite extraneous circumstances or things that may come up, how are we still being really consistent with those practices and making sure that we can notify and identify, these are the wins that we're having here. How do we replicate this everywhere else? So it is a real conversation. It is something that we're talking about and we're sharing and trying to get the best practices on the ground around what this looks like. Thank you for that question.
I have another question if anybody else doesn't.
Shoot away.
Okay, so back to the focal cohort and those where they are, right? I guess my question is focused on the whole child. So what you guys are doing in the classrooms is really, really important. But what mom and dad do at home is also really important. Mm-hmm. And how are we supporting them? Because we still have a group of parents that are very intimidated by teachers, by administrators, by the school system. And our proud folks may not understand the assignment, may not know, there was a point when my kid's math was over my head. and I was happy to admit it because math isn't my thing. But so for some folks, that's a difficult thing to reconcile. But in many ways, for all of us, parents sometimes need to be taught how to support their kids. And I'm just wondering how, I'm looking at that whole child, what's the parent aspect?
Well, I do know, if I can go back to when we had our curriculum night, all of the teachers had different resources for parents, different websites, their constant communication, I've seen different examples of homework layout, different ways of, because all this math stuff is new, so like different new math and old math. I've seen that. I think that because our teachers do a really good job at forging that relationship, I think our parents are really comfortable with saying, hey, I was one of those parents that was like, I know the old math. Now, I understand you're teaching the new math, but the answer's right, you know. And so I think we have a lot of those as well. And I also think that having the parent-teacher conferences, they have folders available where they have homework helpers and these different resources, and they keep that line of communication open. So I do get your point about how some parents can be intimidated or not reach out. In reaching out to, we speak specifically about our focal cohort parents, they are definitely very happy to contact me to let me know if they're having a difficulty in an area or whatever, and they are the same way with the teachers. So I would just say us offering up ourselves and making sure we over communicate and give tons of resources and how to navigate those resources, tons of websites, passwords to things that we use during the school day. I think that those things have been very, very beneficial to helping them with that piece at home.
And I would agree. I think that like it's with kids too, in order to have kids work for you, you need to build that relationship and that trust. And so I think that we do as teachers do that from the start of the year, like Tori said, like with starting a curriculum night, like we started there. And then I understand what you're saying, like some parents, like they don't come to curriculum night because they can't, they don't want to, or they don't feel comfortable. I totally get that. But we then are very we reach out to everyone. Mm-hmm. And we also include in our newsletters those same resources, like here are links to like with Eureka Math. Here's links, here's an example of a completed homework assignment. It's basically the answer key if you need to help your child. Mm-hmm. But if there are parents who are not engaging with us, we're not just like, whatever, we're not gonna talk to them.
We're stalking.
Like we will try to reach out in whatever way we can, but in a positive way. Like your child did this amazing thing today to try to, then start that. And then once you've done that, and we all know that's important, and we do that early on, so that then we do, I would say there's no parents that I have not had any contact with in years, like even the difficult, like the hard to reach ones for whatever reason, but I definitely understand your point. But we know like the importance of like building that relationship, not only with the child, but with the family as well.
And being proactive, because even in August when we all sat together as a team, when we first met each other from summer, we talked about some of the things that might come up. And one big thing was executive functioning. So I created a whole presentation for teachers to, trash or treasure to give to their families. And then I included it on my weekly, it's still there on my weekly communication to families, like different ways you could help with the executive functioning. Having your kid put on their own boots. These just different practical steps that will help them in school too.
And also to add, I have monthly coffee with the principals. So the goal is to bring as many families in as possible. And the kind of community that I envision for Longfellow is all families feeling really comfortable about being able to advocate for their kids and being able to get the resources they need. They've come to us if they had other social emotional resources they needed for their kids, and we put them in contact with a social worker, and it's very discreet. We've had, I've had to navigate some situations where there may have been a misunderstanding between a teacher's outline of a specific lesson and what the parent thought, and we have those conversations together, and we make sure that there's a streamlined communication for it. So there is, and again, like the executive functioning, there's these tips, there's things that we reach out to families for to get feedback to help them feel comfortable and to help them know that you advocating on behalf of your child's experience, learning experience is absolutely important. And so, like Ms. Nelson said, teachers are really good about those newsletter communications, making sure that they're keeping parents up to date with certain things. The communication is consistent across whether it's teachers, what's coming from teachers, whether it's coming from admin. We try to be all on the same page about making sure that whatever information they're getting from us they can understand, it's clear, and they know what next steps or who to go to if they still have more questions. So I appreciate the family involvement question because it is a really big priority for us.
Thank you.
Well, following in, segueing on that and family involvement, the district has recently reshifted how we transition from 5th to 6th grade with that summer program that has been very well received. How do you envision having that segue with your 5th graders especially going through to 6th grade? Because I love that you're talking about executive function and how can we support families, not just the students, but the whole entity on moving forward. How do you see that moving forward? And also, I just want to encourage, as you're seeing more resources, that this is something that we see needing more support for. I'd love to see that at the next presentation, so we can keep building this work you're doing.
Good question. Thank you. In regards to the supports for our 5th graders who so nervously transition to 6th grade, it is a lot of angst. One, we support the families, keeping in communication. So for the past couple of years, we have had communication with Julian and their teachers about, hey, when can we bring our 5th graders over before that even happens so they can start getting the lay of the land? What information can we also put in our newsletters for our families who are trying to get answers and questions and don't know who to go to? So there's those pieces. There's being able to really involve the teachers. We have the teachers from Julian come over and help with that too. I know the 5th grade teachers, in preparing for the last, maybe the second half of the year, that 3rd trimester, really do a lot of front loading to support helping the students feel comfortable about that transition, at least as comfortable as possible, and also providing the families with that same kind of support. I think that, I think the biggest thing that we try to help prepare them for is the shift in the classes, for one thing, right? You're moving to 7 different classes maybe in a day versus your main class and then going to specials or something like that. So we do build those conversations in, whether it's through our morning meeting sessions. They have community time and they have conversations about a lot of the things that they're having angst about. Again, those lunch sessions that I said teachers like to have, and they touch base with kiddos, and the students are very expressive about what they don't understand or maybe what their family is nervous about. Moms reach out to us, and moms and dads reach out to us and say, well, my kiddo has an IEP, and I know that they're gonna have a 504 next year, and they need this kind of support. Who can I get in contact with? And Julian. And so we'll reach out and make sure that they have someone before the year starts and even before the summer starts that they can have that communication with. Because every year it's the same. We get about a rush of families, maybe about that March month, when they are absolutely nervous and they're like, oh my God, it's next year. I don't know anything. We're like, wait, we're going to continue to give you information. We're here to support. So we really try to see them through that whole aspect of it because it is a transition. And we want the families to feel really, really comfortable about that experience because it is going to be a change, but how do we allow them to accept the change and handle it successfully?
And currently there is a buddy situation. In October, myself and one of the APs from Julian put the 5th grade team in touch with a 7th grade who's doing a community service project. And so they have a buddy system going on with pen pals, so they'll have someone there when they go to be familiar with and teach them the lay of the land as well.
Another great thing that we have is that collaboration between elementary and middle school as well. So last year, something that we did is we shared the registration for the middle school connection to the teachers and the principals, so they were able to know who has already signed up, who did not, and they were able to follow with the teachers, have a rapport with those families, and really do the last push, or the little, they're saying, the little extra phone call and the little connection about making sure they don't miss that opportunity, and also they were able to troubleshoot any barriers they might have. So I plan to do the same thing this year as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Longfellow, and I think Lincoln's coming up next. Come on up. All right, come on up, Lincoln. Yep. Now, Lincoln, I remember last year too, your presentation got us really thinking. Do you remember that? Marianne, you get the big chair?
You get the big chair. She gets the big chair.
My staff should be sitting in the big chair. They're the ones who have to teach tomorrow.
Coming on, Marianne, center.
Hi, everyone.
Shared leadership.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Marianne Rayfield. I'm the proud principal at Lincoln Elementary School, and I have several staff members presenting with me. And also, I want to recognize, I don't know if we can get the camera to turn, Michael, to show the fabulous, legendary assistant principal Paula Hughes is here. Marvin Childress is our student support specialist, and then we also have one of the members of our 5th grade team, Dawn Shanahan, is here with us as well. And then presenting with me up here.
My name is Courtney Tyler. I'm one of the 5th grade teachers.
My name's Lisa Rudin, and I teach 2nd grade.
My name's Catherine Cleet. I'm a 3rd grade teacher and also a parent at Lincoln.
And so tonight we are here to share our school year 25 story with all of you. So we'd like to start our presentation this evening with some Lincoln Head Lions. Lions is our mascot. And so we have 554 students currently with 97 staff members. We have 31 classrooms and 61 students identified in our focal cohort group this year. Our focus has been based on the feedback that we gathered during the summer listening sessions from both our staff and our students. And this year we are really reflecting on and continuously improving our culture and climate, our sense of belonging, with an emphasis on our focal cohort students as well as our new students. And it is our goal through our efforts and our focus this year that each and every one of our students and staff members leaves each day saying it has been a great day to be up at Lincoln. So similar to Longfellow, we also, our district leadership wanted us to share our school-wide data again. On the right-hand side, you'll see the school year 25 goals that were set for us with our leadership team as a result of last year's data. And then in the middle there, in the red and blue and gray, you'll see the current data that we have from our fall assessments, which again was our NWEA assessments and our panorama assessments for each of our grade levels. So again, similar to Longfellow, the blue is showing where students were at in the fall, already meeting or exceeding goals, and the red is showing us areas that we needed to improve on in order to meet our end of the school year goals. So one of the things that we really wanted to do in all of the years that I've been here in Oak Park District 97, we've gone through a lot of different versions of a school leadership plan. And oftentimes when we present it to the staff, it can be confusing and overwhelming. So one of our goals this year was to make sure that we simplified the work that we wanted to do for our teams, and that this would help us drive all of our conversations in all of our different collaborative spaces. So our school improvement goals have been the constant driver of the work that we do on a daily basis up at Lincoln. And again, in order to simplify things for all of our staff and our families and students, what we did is we created this graphic, and what you see is our 6 simplified structures on the right-hand side. These are the things that we are continuously working on providing professional development on. And then on the left-hand side in black, you see our end-of-year goals for belonging, engagement, and math and ELA. And underneath that, those were our fall scores leading up to, we just finished the NWA assessments. Today was the last day of them, and then we'll take the panorama assessment for belonging and engagement in the spring.
Okay, so our first structure to support us in meeting our SIP goals are community meetings, which you see a picture of. We know that community meetings are an important part of our school day because we're able to listen to our students, share about their worlds, both inside and outside of our classroom. Our staff has participated in professional learning opportunities from Lincoln colleagues about the power of community meetings in the classroom. Community meetings give students the opportunity to share their likes and dislikes, give feedback to their teachers about their learning, self-assess their personal and academic growth, share feelings and concerns, initiate and share ideas, as well as set, track, and review personal and class-wide academic goals. Community meetings also give students a chance to play games with each other, learn about each other, and build positive learning climates in their classrooms which we know are critical to a productive learning environment. And then our second structure to reach our SIP goals is a focus on social emotional learning all of the time. So we know that D97 utilizes second step curriculum to provide direct instruction of social emotional learning goals. And up at Lincoln, we believe in providing social emotional learning instruction all of the time, not just then. So whether it's through our community meetings or positive behavioral interventions and support structures and initiatives, a focus on our students' social emotional learning is a top priority for us. We recognize and celebrate student success through classes, grades, and school-wide celebrations. And we build their capacity one paw print at a time by reteaching, role-playing, modeling, and assessing students' sense of belonging all along the way. And here you see our school-wide behavior expectations celebration at the end of first trimester. Students and staff participated in a glow dance party in our multi-purpose room, and we received rave reviews from our dancing students.
Recognizing and welcoming our new students is an important part of our plan to support our school improvement goal and all students feeling a sense of belonging. We've had 2 new student and staff luncheons where we work on team building activities, getting to know students from different grade levels, listening to students' experiences about Lincoln School. And as you can imagine, the students have given us a lot of great feedback. During the most recent luncheon last week that we had, the kids went on a scavenger hunt looking for letters throughout the school to spell something, and it's a great day to be up at Lincoln. And one of the things in our closing circle that they repeated was that they love their new friends and their teachers at Lincoln School.
Students love when they get to make announcements over our PA system. Our students and student council decided that our school needed some new reminders of what it looks like, sounds like, and feels like to follow our behavior expectations around our school after they return from break. So they wrote out daily messages to announce to students each morning during the first 2 weeks in January. They loved the chance to be leaders and share advice with their peers. Our students also told us they love how we gamified the learning of expectations at the beginning of the year. We practiced our behavior expectations by having mystery staff spotters on the lookout for classes following expectations, mystery classrooms recognized for their efforts to follow expectations, and a mystery phrase that students received letters for when a staff member caught them being respectful, responsible, and safe. So, we continue to find creative ways to gamify practicing behavior expectations, like the bingo board pictured here, used to practice PBIS expectations when we return from winter break.
Our third structure to meet our school improvement goals is to build our culture and climate by ensuring that all of our students feel like they have a sense of belonging up at Lincoln. So at each of our staff meetings, we have each staff member write a postcard to a student, a family member, or a faculty member to recognize and celebrate them. Students and parents have told us that these postcards have meant so much to them, and they are proudly displayed in their living spaces.
Extra opportunities. Our fourth strategy to support our SIP goal is to offer students extra opportunities to play, to think, to create, and to socialize during the school day. Students and staff have worked together to develop robust lunchtime club rosters of activities that students can enroll and participate in. Examples include Trekkers that Ms. Hughes helps run, which is a lunchtime running club for all students. Lincoln's 5th grade service team, world language courses offering Japanese, French, Spanish, STEAM Club, which Ms. Tyler created, our club, which I help run, as well as Garden Club, Student Council, Lions Roar Book Club, Chess Club, Reading Book Buddies, and Pride Club. And students continue to advocate for new clubs like Kindness Club and Chill Club that we just started this past October.
Which brings us to all the behind the scenes work that our staff does on a daily basis to collaborate and plan for how our students will be able to learn and grow throughout the year. Our 5th and 6th structure to support meeting our school improvement goals are to look at student data and backwards design instruction as a result. Through our collaborative team meetings that emphasize a focus on student data, our teams collect student data, analyze it, plan assessments, deconstruct standards, plan for instruction, assess students again, and then reflect on student growth and achievement. We are striving towards creating a culture where staff discusses what students are learning instead of what teachers are teaching. Here you see pictured our collaborative team meetings where staff is evaluating student writing essays to come to an agreement on what is expected of students to show mastery at that current time of the school year, and that's the top right picture. And on the bottom right, staff disaggregates math data, led by Lisa here, our second grade team lead, to determine small group instruction strategies to reteach subtraction within 120 for students who are not yet meeting that goal.
So our theme this year has been making a difference one paw print at a time. And this theme has been a catalyst for us to be observers and listeners throughout our community, looking for ways to celebrate our students, staff, and families.
We are very, very thankful for our highly involved parents. Through our weekly newsletter, Communication to Families, called The Lion's Roar, we feature a student, staff, or family member who is making a difference in the Lincoln community, one paw print at a time. For example, we celebrated our 4th grade student, Alta, who won a Community Poetry Award for her outstanding writing. We celebrated Mr. Ben, one of our teaching assistants, who is doing a research project on the history of Lincoln and collecting artifacts dating back 100 years. And one of our 5th graders, Lucas, who is a leader and constant support to our kindergartners by getting them on the bus safely every day at the end of the school day. We are always inviting parents into the classroom to volunteer or showcase a family tradition or culture. For example, just this week, parent Laura Meglin is teaching our kindergartners about her family traditions around Chinese New Year. Our PTO does amazing work to provide events such as our back to school picnic, the upcoming 75th Carnival that we have this Saturday, the Multicultural Fest in March, Family Reading Night in April, Memorial Day ceremony in May, alongside our monthly heritage recognitions. In addition, we had 3 events over the summer to welcome our students and families back to school through our graffiti greeting coloring morning event, reading with Mrs. Rayfield lunchtime picnic event, and Popsicles in the Park evening event. Students are still asking Principal Rayfield if she's going to give out popsicles in the park again anytime soon.
Especially during recess.
Yeah.
Our work around student engagement, our student engagement goal is to ensure that students understand what they are learning and why they are learning it, with an emphasis on student learning objectives, criteria for success, exemplar models, and a robust feedback loop. Students are learning how to set goals, track their progress, reflect on their action steps to meet their goals, and adjust accordingly. This is a life skill that we are hoping to instill in all of our students during their time at Lincoln. Pictured here, you see our 2nd grader Ian, who is celebrating with his thumbs up. I promise in person it was much more exciting. Celebrating reaching his math fact fluency goal.
Okay, so we all know that it takes a village to raise the next generation of Oak Park graduates. So up at Lincoln, we're fortunate enough for classroom teachers and students to work with some amazing and talented specials teachers. Our music, art, Spanish, and PE teachers, and of course our amazing librarian, collaborate with colleagues at each grade level and around the district to focus on planning with universal design for learning as their focus. Music, art, Spanish, PE, and library allow students to express their learning in a variety of creative ways and give students a chance to experience learning through multiple modalities.
Our village includes all the D97 staff members working at Lincoln, from our TAs to special education teachers, custodial and lunch staff, to our social workers, enrichment specialists, instructional coach, and our office staff. We all play an immense role in supporting our students each and every day. Abraham Lincoln said, "A house divided cannot stand." Our home at Lincoln stands strong because it is built on the shoulders of these D97 proud.
Who's got the Magneto mask on?
It's one of them.
My friend right there. So in addition to our commitment to ensure students know what they are learning and why, we have also needed to take a step back and listen to our students' experiences about school. What is going well for them? What would they like to see change? Do they feel like they have a voice and choice in their learning? Lincoln's focal cohort this year is a group of 61 students. These students are our Black students as identified by their parents and guardians in Power School. Our building leadership team, as well as our MTSS team, which includes our enrichment specialists and our reading and math interventionists, we have 2 OPTA union reps, and members of our related service team are all partnering with our students in an action plan to ask questions and listen to our students' experiences at school. We come together once a month to reflect on current systems and structures in place. We discuss whether the systems and structures support and enhance learning and provide a path to student growth and success. We know that when we listen to the stories and experiences of a group of our students, reflect and then plan to eliminate barriers that are impeding their growth and achievement, that this work is good for all of our students and will benefit all of our Lincoln community. Our students in our focal cohort have responded favorably to statements such as, I feel safe at Lincoln, I have friends, my teacher likes and cares about me, and I belong in our Lincoln community. And the top left-hand picture is some of the questions that we ask our students monthly. Areas of opportunity based on their feedback include, I like coming to school each day, I am interested in what I am learning, and I have choice and voice in what I want to learn and do in class. We have made some changes as a result of our student feedback. For example, one of our students told us that he didn't like coming to school because he didn't like getting up early and he wanted to stay home and play. So their teacher is now starting their morning with what we call a soft start, where students come into school and they choose from a variety of play activities to start their day by playing and socializing with their peers. Another student told us that they would like noise-canceling headphones to feel safer at school. We were able to get these for that student the next day and practice with them when to use them and when they needed to be actively listening. Another student mentioned that they really liked science and wanted to do more science experiments. We talked with that student's teacher, and we worked with the teacher to get ideas from Mystery Science as well as books on EPIC to incorporate into literacy learning centers. It has been a personal goal of mine this year, being the new principal at Lincoln, to work on relationship building and shared leadership among our staff. Through our strategic planning of staff meetings, our institute days, and our building leadership meetings, Lincoln staff has shown a capacity to learn and grow as leaders. Through meeting and collaborating with our BTOP representative, we are now reading and talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion quotes at the start of every building leadership team meeting. Our team leads have carried this practice over into their PLC meetings, creating spaces for our staff to learn, reflect, and have discussions previously missing from our collaborative spaces.
Staff from various collaborative teams are coming together to collect student voice survey data and share student voices in team meetings and building leadership meetings. Our team is working to revamp the organization and planning of lunch clubs and activities in order to incorporate student voice and choice more effectively. Our professional learning during staff meetings has a focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as math, literacy, and social emotional learning interventions.
We're capitalizing on in-house experts in UDL, such as our MTSS team and instructional coach, to support teachers with planning for multiple forms of representation of content and differentiating student methods for expression of what they have learned.
And finally, we're using street level data and map level data to plan for win time, what I need, in order to maximize opportunities for students to get what they need to foster continued growth and achievement.
So in the true nature of collaboration, our Spanish immersion team comes together to bring unique experiences to our students, whether it is through their vertical planning of instruction, professional learning as a team, creating a beautiful ofrenda seen here together as a school community, the immersive field trip they take to the Mexican Museum of Art in Pilsen, or the famous Grand Fandango extravaganza that we have every spring. Our teachers are working together to ensure that all learners become bilingual, biliterate, and culturally competent, enabling them to use these competencies to meaningfully engage with an increasingly multicultural and global society.
And it's also important to note that our special education department is a shining star at Lincoln. Our 3 instructional classrooms staffed by 3 amazing special education teachers and their dedicated staff of teaching assistants support the growth and development of not only their students in the classrooms, but the rest of our Lincoln students and staff as well. Lincoln teachers also support students with IEPs in our 3rd through 5th grade co-taught classrooms. In this setting, the general education teacher has the opportunity to collaborate closely with the special education teacher to support the needs of all students in the classroom through various UDL strategies. Finally, Lincoln has one great resource teacher who meets with students in and outside of the classroom to ensure that they have what they need to be successful. Our SPED team's expertise, patience, experience, and depth of knowledge helps all of us remember that what is good for one is good for all. And we are so grateful for their positivity, support, and dedication to all our Lincoln students.
So this is just the start of our school year 25 story thus far. As we work together over the next few months, we will continue to build our capacity as learners, growing together as a community, one paw print at a time. And it has truly been a great day to be up at Lincoln. Thank you.
Any questions?
So I just have one question. You may not be able to answer this in this, but it looks like approximately 1/5 of your students have IEP or a 504.
So we have 554.
Yeah, this was quick math.
Yeah, if you can do that quick math.
So don't hold me to that math, but it seems, I am curious how that compares to average schools.
It's a great question. I don't
Yeah,
know that answer, but I'm sure some of my data people in the room could help us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you though.
What is your question? I'm sorry.
So I was questioning, looking at the numbers on there, doing quick math in my head, which may be wrong, but it's close-ish. 20% of the students, like one-fifth of the students are on an IEP or a 504, and I was curious how that compares in general to schools. Is that high, is that low? And just, if it is high, which I suspect it might be, what resources might be beneficial, especially within our focal cohort, to support students?
Thank you.
We'll get back to you with
there's also been though a really big drop in enrollment, so I don't know if there's been, if there's possibly extra hands that possibly, I mean, I just haven't done the reference, like, this was our largest school. It was, we were like busting out with 800 kids, right? We built a whole expansion, so now we're down to 550, right? So we're down a couple hundred kids in there. I don't know how that relates to section.
Yeah, and then, of course, there's program placement, so which, depending on which programs are placed, that will also change the number of students. But we can share information on a basic overview of proportion.
I think it'd be an interesting thing as we're going through all the focal cohorts to see, to Holly's point, if there's shifts in enrollment and we have resources to redirect, that I would be curious to see through what you're learning, what the implications there, what we could do to best support our students.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have the math pilot resource introduction.
So we've got Jen Logan, Tawanda, Lawrence coming up, and Louise is staying up for this as well.
right, so we are here to share with you our joy of discovery of mathematics. It's like our K-5 math approach to mathematics, and it's all the work that is happening in our district. So I had the opportunity to introduce ourselves. So Luis De Leon is the superintendent.
Tawanda Lawrence, Senior Director for Teaching and Learning.
Jennifer Logan, Curriculum Coordinator.
So what is the big idea?
Yep, well, we talked about this earlier, just making sure that, I think there's been a lot of discussion about math and about the trajectory to math from here to high school. And I think what's important is that it's less about what courses are there, it's more about how are we ready from a standards-based perspective. And so what you're gonna see today is like, getting close to standards-based instruction, so all of our students are ready for high levels of math and also enjoying math. It's not just about getting courses, it's about actually being mathematicians and enjoying the field of math.
So echoing what the chat has shared, like that's pretty much the goal of core instruction, is to really take the time to ensure that our scholars have the access to those standards-based curriculum in elementary, but also to create a foundation that will support them as well to be successful in middle school, high school, and beyond. So we know that by focusing on those rigorous, engaging, and equitable instruction, we're going to be able to prepare our students with that knowledgeable and critical thinking abilities, and with that also to foster that confidence for them to thrive into academic journeys and future endeavors. Tonight we're introducing the theme for our work in K-5, which is the joy for discovery in mathematics. This is inspiring all K-5 math learners to reach their full potential, which is in our core instruction to build a strong foundation in math to support those lifelong learning skills and also to promote that achievement for all students. So we're going to be going through to explaining the mathematics and the path of the equity, going to explain to you the math curriculum committee priorities for the school year, and also we'll be moving into sharing with you the timeline and next steps, and then we'll have the opportunity for questions and answers at the end. Here. There you go.
So this quote captures how we want students to build their understanding of math. So I'm going to read the quote aloud, but I want you to think about some key words that resonate with you as I read the quote. The powerful thinkers in today's world are not those who can calculate fast, as used to be true. Fast calculations are now fully automated, routine, and uninspiring. The powerful thinkers are those who make connections, think logically, and use space, data, and numbers creatively. Any thoughts in terms of some words that stand out for you in that quote? If you feel comfortable sharing. I don't want to put you on the spot.
I will go. I think this is spot on many ways, but the powerful thinkers who make connections, if we can foster that in our students, I would be extremely happy.
Absolutely. I agree. Any other thoughts?
Not seeing a component, but seeing the whole picture.
Very important. So we'll talk a little bit more about that too.
We've got Don in the audience.
I mean, you ask creatively, get
Yeah.
past rote, black and white, get past all the fast calculations and do something fun.
Love it. And so we have two of our math committee members here decided to stay after their Lincoln presentation.
That's
So
for you guys.
thank you. Thank you.
We
We're a
appreciate
team
it.
We're all
here.
in this together.
Yes, we
Seriously.
are.
That's another thing.
It is. So later in our presentation, we're going to talk a little bit more about our plans for developing this type of math learner in grades K-5.
So with that, as we engage in this work, we are committed in working with our staff, with educators, to ensure that our students are reaching the full potential. With that, the importance of really tapping into those best practices that you mentioned, those big ideas, and with that, taking those best practices and putting them into the design of those learning experiences for our students in the classrooms and across our district. So we are going to begin our work. We have actually founded our work. The foundation is our equity policy and also those best practices established in the frameworks for teaching. And with that, we're ensuring that all the instructional practices are solid and then providing the access for all our students for them to be successful. So as I was mentioning, we have our equity policy that actually calls for us to ensure that we have the equitable access, also to be attentive to the elimination of disproportionality of those experiences for the students, then to ensure as well that professional development also is inclusive and recognizing this value and diversity as we think about designing and really implementing. So this is the frameworks for teaching from Danielson, and this is very important as this is the foundational skills and conceptual understanding that we use to design structure and to really to ensure the academic success and journey. With these elements, we are creating that cohesive and impactful learning experiences as we think about standard-based instruction. So we think about really prioritizing those standards that actually are foundational and that we can build on, and really delivering that scaffold instruction as we think about our students as we prepare. And then at the same time, as we are developing these opportunities, it's very important that we also providing that clarity of those learning objectives. So really the students have a clear understanding about the importance of what they're learning, also how success looks like, and then for them to apply themselves, and then for staff as well to design those opportunities for students as they are communicating to their students those outcomes that they are desired. And then with that also the opportunity for us to really engage into providing that differentiation and equity as we're really using these guidance and these components as we design our instruction. Providing those, not only the planning of the lesson, but also thinking about the environment of the classroom and how this classroom is being used. And then with that, how the learning experience is delivered, and then also how we are actually reflecting the practice and really adjusting. With that, more about taking this reflection as an educator and a professional in really honing and really applying and adjusting, but also having the opportunity to grow through that reflection and really engage in professional development with our colleagues and that collective opportunity for us to support that growth.
So Dr. De Leon shared how our path to creating an equitable experience for math for our K-5 students is grounded in our D97 equity policy and also connected to the framework for teaching. So I'm going to share 5 practices from Joe Bowler's work that we will prioritize this year and next year as we ensure that our math instruction in the classroom is more inclusive and accessible for our students. So the first one is to offer all students high-level content. So the word here to focus on is all. We want to make sure that all students in D97 experience high-quality math instruction. We want them to be able to learn challenging content, but we also want to be able to meet them where they are to make sure that they're receiving the support that they need in order to access that high-level content. So that's very important. The second area is to work to change ideas about who can achieve math. So our mindset beliefs about math actually can create barriers for our students. So if I had $1 for every time I heard, I'm just not good at math, I'd probably be rich right now because we hear that a lot. And it's just something that we say out loud, but we have to also keep in mind that messages like this can either open or close pathways for students. So we want to make sure that all of our staff, they're communicating a growth mindset around math. We want all students to believe that they can achieve in this area, whether they feel like they're good at it or not. The third area is to encourage students to think deeply about math. So it's important that all of our students understand the connections around math. We want them to know the why, the when, the how methods work. Not just to get to the answer, but how they got to the answer. So this not only increases their understanding of the math content, but it also helps to develop and increase their achievement. Next slide. The fourth area is to teach students to work together. So research has shown over and over again that when students work collaboratively and cooperatively around math, it really helps to build their critical thinking skills as well as their problem solving. But not only that, it allows them to share ideas with each other and perspectives with their peers, and this just helps to lead to a deeper understanding of the math content. And finally, give girls and students of color additional encouragement to learn math. So as we address equity and access, it includes both ensuring that all of our students attain proficiency in math as it relates to the standards that students should know and be able to do, but also increasing the numbers of girls and students of color. So again, communicating those positive messages about math and making sure that there are also systems and structures in place in the classroom to make sure every student reaches their highest potential.
Okay, so now we're going to walk through the school year 24-25 priorities for the K-5 Math Curriculum Committee, and these priorities are going to guide the rest of our presentation this evening. So here we wanted to take a moment for you all to meet the members of our K-5 Math Curriculum Committee. We have two outstanding members, Don Shanahan and Courtney Tyler over here from Team Lincoln. But you'll see here that we have over 29 teachers from our elementary schools. And this diverse team of educators really does bring a wealth of experience and perspective. And we've really been working together to shape the future of our math instruction here in District 97. So this year we've identified 5 key priorities for our work. And then throughout the rest of this presentation, we're going to guide you through each of these priorities. And we're really going to help provide an in-depth look at how they align with our goals and support our vision for a K-5 math curriculum.
So the first priority is to gather feedback from all elementary teachers to inform the resource review process. So we are engaging in a resource review for math in grades K-5 this year, but we wanted to be intentional about how we gathered this feedback from teachers across the district. So we started with grade level teams first. We asked grade level teams to come together across the 8 elementary schools and ask them to reflect on their instructional practice in the classroom, as well as the current adopted resource, which is Eureka Math. So we provided a survey for them to complete. So the teams discussed the survey and they shared their thoughts and their reflections as it relates to the resources, the professional learning opportunities that would enhance their practice that they wanted to inform us of. So what you see in the top left corner is a snapshot of what the data looks like when we pull, let's say, a school survey data. So you can't see it clearly, but this is a school's data in terms of each grade level team and how they responded to each of the questions in the survey. So not only did we want grade level teams to come together, but Jen and I felt it was important for us to even connect with the school leaders at each school. So we scheduled building leadership team meetings where we went to every school. We actually went to our 7th school today, and next week is our last school. But during these meetings, we wanted to talk about the survey questions, and we wanted to hear more from the leaders of the school in terms of the needs and how we need to approach our resource review process in terms of looking for effective resources for Tier 1 core instruction. We also took the opportunity to kind of highlight the work that we're doing this year with our resource review and sharing next steps as it relates to the pilot process next year. And this is just a picture of man at the bottom. That was one of our BLT meetings.
Okay, so priority number 2 is around developing a mission statement. So creating a mission statement is the key first step in establishing a curriculum committee. Our math curriculum committee has been actively drafting a mission statement to guide both our work and the math resource review process. So as we finalize the statement, it will serve as a framework for selecting the best math curricular resource for District 97. Priority number 3 is all about establishing a shared understanding of the Illinois learning standards in math, as well as focusing on the instructional shifts that we wanted to level set all of our committee members with. And we felt that this was important because we believe it's essential that we have this shared understanding when it comes to selecting a resource that will meet the diverse needs of all of our students.
So the fourth priority of our work this year is at the end of this year, we will select 2 comprehensive math resources to pilot during the 25-26 school year. So next year, there will be 2 schools, one Brooks feeder and one Julian feeder, who will participate in the pilot. But before we get to the pilot process, this should look familiar to you because this is the same 3-stage process that we are engaging in with our ELA resource review and pilot. So this year during the resource review, we will work through stage 1 and stage 2. So we're in the process of identifying resources to review. We've gathered a lot of recommendations from various stakeholders. The teachers that we talked to across the district in terms of their recommendations. Jennifer and I are also a part of curriculum director cohorts. She works with West 40 and I connect with the DuPage County. And so we've gotten a lot of recommendations from those school districts as well. And our first stage of this is that we utilize ed reports to identify out of our list of resources which of those resources actually meet expectations as it relates to the standards. And then we start to seek out those vendors and we provide a survey of questions so that we can invite vendors into our math committee meeting to present to us. So the second stage of the process is how do we select those resources to pilot? So again, we invite those vendors in to present to the committee. At that time, our committee members have access to demo accounts, so they're able to explore independently. But we utilize several rubrics to identify which of the resources out of the presentations we feel like are appropriate to pilot for the next year. And the last stage of the process will happen next year, where we will conduct the pilot at the 2 schools and gather data. So the 2 schools will pilot both resources. We will gather feedback from teachers, staff, administrators, and families, as well as students. We'll also look at a few data points because we'll also analyze our pre and post assessment data from each pilot just to see how our students performed as it relates to that unit that we piloted. And then we'll use evaluation tools again to identify the resource that we feel best fits the needs of the students in our district that we would come back to this table to recommend for adoption district-wide.
Priority number 5 is all around the pilot units of instruction as well as scope and sequence, as well as determining professional learning needs. The math pilot will begin in January 2026. This timeline will allow teachers time to acclimate to the new district-wide ELA resource before shifting a focus to a math pilot. The pilot will ensure that all math standards are thoroughly covered using the 2 selected resources. The pilot scope and sequence, will ensure that all math standards are thoroughly covered with those 2 selected resources, and that will be forthcoming once the 2 resources are selected to pilot.
So it's also important that we provide professional learning for teachers to improve their practice. So we'll have 2 strands of professional learning happening in the area of math next year, similar to how we had 2 strands of professional learning happening this year for ELA. The first strand would be based on the pilot schools. So those are 2 schools out of our district that would be receiving initial training and follow-up coaching as it relates to the resources that they're piloting. However, the second strand of the professional learning will be more so focused on the 6 schools who are the non-pilot schools. And so we are very excited to be supporting those teachers with applying strategies from 2 really popular books around math. We're going to be looking at mathematical mindsets, which is awesome. It just provides practical strategies and activities for teachers just to help students grow in their learning of math and just help them understand that they are able to enjoy math and actually succeed in it. And then building thinking classrooms, which also provides 14, you probably heard Longfellow talk about that a little bit, they've kind of gotten a jump start, but really applying 14 practices that allow teachers to create an ideal classroom setting for that deep mathematics learning to occur. So very excited about the professional learning that we'll be engaging in next year in math, in addition to the ELA professional learning that we'll be providing. So it's going to be a busy year. So now we're going to talk a little bit about our timeline and next steps. So we outlined all of our 5 priorities in terms of how we will accomplish each of them by the end of this year. So you'll see that we're currently gathering feedback from teachers in terms of going into those BLT meetings and having those meetings. So we should be done with those meetings by the end of February. So that's priority 1. Priority 2, Jennifer is working closely with the math committee in terms of the math mission statement. We are very close to closing that out. I feel like we'll have a solid mission statement by our next meeting. And priority number 3, we want to make sure that our committee has a shared understanding of the standards. So Jennifer did a lot of training with the committee at the beginning of the year around the standards, just to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of our understanding. And then still working through the evaluation tools. There are several that we're choosing, so we're going to definitely build that understanding there. And then priority 4, selecting 2 math resources to pilot. So we will have those resources selected by April. And after we select those resources to pilot, our work begins in terms of setting up for next year. So priority 5, identifying the units of instruction that we'll pilot, because we want to make sure that all the standards are covered so that students, we're not skipping any standards based on the pilot. So we will intentionally select units to cover those standards that they need to know by the end of the year, and then make sure that the professional learning plan is in place for the 2 strands of professional learning for non-pilot and pilot schools. So that's it. Open it up for questions.
I ask a question?
Oh.
Is that okay?
Yep, go ahead.
So we've been talking about math quite a bit. And I actually, I asked a question last time that essentially the answer was that we are not able to, by 8th grade under our current curriculum, get kids to calculus in high school without a summer program or an extra T3. That was the conversation we had. Are we looking at making sure this K-5 curriculum helps us do that? Like putting more into K-5, or at least aligning up the K-5. I know we're talking about standards by the end of the year, but based on the conversation we just had, like getting to standards by the end of the year by grade level isn't enough. Like we actually have to be a little bit ahead in order to get them kids to calculus without a summer school program. We're not talking about advanced kids, we're talking about non-advanced kids. That was the answer that we got last week. So if it's not enough by going with the standards, like how do we make sure that we put our kids in a position where every kid can get to algebra by 8th and get to calculus by high school through you starting in kindergarten?
Right, and so this work.
I'm sorry, actually, can I add on to your question?
Yeah,
real
of
quick?
course.
So just to kind of add on to that, right now, we all recognize that getting to integrated math 1 by 8th grade is kind of a critical path. And we're trying to address it all in middle school right now. So to add to that question, what do we need to do to not squish all of that burden onto middle school? Kind of a rephrase of that piece.
Totally.
Okay. Well, I do believe that the foundation starts in grades K-5, and that was the purpose of this presentation, right? We want to make sure that we have a solid core tier 1 practices and instruction happening across all 8 of our elementary schools. And so that is the work that we're doing, right? We're making sure that teachers have the professional learning that they need. We're making sure that teachers have effective resources that they need. So that is the work that we're doing this year and next year. In terms of ensuring that students have access to algebra or integrated math 1 by 8th grade, I believe that the pathways that we currently have in place provide students with that opportunity. If a student is interested in exploring the next grade level standards, they have that ability to do that in different ways. We have the math pathway that is available for students in the middle school. And starting in 5th grade, we have the access to algebra program that is available. So I think it's important that we keep in mind that students have multiple years to explore these pathways beginning in 5th grade. So if it doesn't work in 5th grade, they can try again in 6th grade. Doesn't work then, they can try again in 7th grade. So there are multiple opportunities for that to happen. Also in grades K through 5, we have acceleration, where we have the opportunity for students to single subject accelerate or whole grade accelerate. So I do feel as though we have opportunities available, but I do believe it starts with making sure students first and foremost understand the standards at their grade level. And that is what our goal is right now.
So I'm gonna challenge that.
Sure.
I don't like, so the fact that we can have a kid take 2 math classes at the same time in their 3rd semester of their 3rd trimester of 5th grade, 6th grade, or 7th grade, to me, yes, it is technically an opportunity. It does not seem opportune, right? I mean, that's a lot to ask our kids. Like, and then if they don't succeed, oh, try again. Like, we're not really actually addressing why they're not succeeding. So I'm not a teacher, but as a parent, to me, it's really troubling that we don't have a path that's K through 8 without an extra trimester, an extra summer, or anything else that makes sure that those kids get to that point. Whether the curriculums are not available, whether we talk to kind of our peers, but like adopting a pilot or piloting a curriculum that the teachers and students really like, and then finding ourselves at the end of it, where we are now, which is not good for students. To me, that would be failure and a waste of resources. Right now, we're in a position where a lot of our kids, and I'm not talking about acceleration. Acceleration is, those kids are actually likely to accelerate and be fine. I'm talking about getting most of our kids able to do integrated, I don't even know, not using access to algebra, but getting to integrated math. So they can be on a path to get to calculus through high school. So I know that there's opportunities, and I appreciate that the district is finding a way to get it not in the summer, although I'm not convinced that's so great, right? You're gonna have literally kids taking 6th grade math, and we're working on the middle school schedule, but at the 3rd trimester, they're gonna take 6th grade and 7th grade math, overlapping in the 3rd trimester, and then go in the summer 2 hours a day. I just doesn't sound like, if we're in the middle of a schedule and we're at like changes in the redesign of the schedule, and we're in the middle of looking at K through 5, is it possible to find a K through 8 curriculum that lets us achieve that without putting that burden on our 5th, 6th, and 7th graders to take an extra trimester of math, overlapping with their current trimester of math?
I think I think this is a lot, and I applaud the effort, but I think there's still a lot of confusion about the math rollout that we've been hearing about for the past couple of weeks. Like, there's so many questions. Like, people are still confused, people are still frustrated. We have a new middle school schedule coming. I just think this is a lot, and I think I would rather scale back and hold off to do something very well than to do so many things okay-ish. And to me, this feels okay-ish. I think we should really, and this is not for you guys, this is just in general. I think we first have to go back to make sure that everyone understands, like, integration math. Like, I've heard a couple people use this different terms and I'm confused. So I'm like, are we saying integrated math? Are we saying acceleration? Like, what is the word of the day? And so I have been looking at this. I've been in these board meetings and I feel like I'm infused in it, but that's as a board member. But if I'm a parent who, you know, doesn't have time to be in this stuff, I can imagine how frustrating this is because I don't understand it. Like, someone asked me yesterday and I was like, there was an email, you should go back to the email and you can go back to the board meeting and the board updates. But I just think, like, let's maybe pause this for a little bit just so we can, like, flush out stuff. Because I just feel like this is a lot.
Can I ask you to clarify what is the goal you're asking? Because, you know, I think ultimately what I hear you asking, I want us to understand, you know, and I think, you know, whenever you're asking questions as a parent, certainly as a board member, as a parent, it could be a number of things going on. It could be that we need to do a better job communicating, or it could be that we need to change course, or a lot of things in between. What I hear you asking for, in my terms, is increased rigor, right? Like, you know, are you saying like, I want every student to take calculus, you know, because, you know, or I guess I'm trying
To have that option.
Understand, so.
Equitably.
At what?
Equitably.
What's that? Go
They
ahead.
do have the option.
Mm-hmm.
So, can I throw something in here? I think part of this is coming on, we had a whole math system that was in place that, because the high school shifted their math, we shifted to match that. But also we were getting feedback from the high school that we were getting students there that were not thriving in math. Maybe they were making it through calculus, but they were not doing it happily, and they were like, I am done with math. Because I had to take it for here, but I am done. And to me personally, that is painful.
I think you also have to add to that, Nancy,
So,
they were
yeah.
double accelerated. A lot of those students
No.
were double accelerated.
I'm saying we were actually hearing that about kids who were not double accelerated, is what I was hearing.
No, it was
Not-
more
it
so
was just
students who were double accelerated,
Okay.
yes.
So regardless, at that point, we've done a lot of shifts. So from a parent perspective, you have a community where some parents are talking and saying, well, my kid did this. And you have some parents who are like, wait, what? That's not what I'm seeing. So you don't have that wisdom of the group of parents who've already done this before to help people understand it. And then you also have people in the middle who, one kid who did it one way and another kid who's doing it another way. There is a lot of confusion out there about what is going on, why, how. So as we are looking at math K through 5, as we are redoing, designing the middle school day, thinking through what that whole pathway is, not just the piece of it, I think is going to be pretty critical so that everyone understands, how does this K5, wait a minute, now we're piloting K5 stuff? How does that fit into? I don't know that you need to pause it, but I think you need to address where does that match up with middle school, and then where does that match with high school? Because I will say, as a parent who has just recently registered their kids for high school, it was a little bit like, just sign up. And there was no explanation. It was a little anxiety provoking.
Well,
And I kind of get where it's going. So if it's anxiety provoking to me, I feel like it's really anxiety, and we're seeing it in the community.
Well, and
We're
also,
hearing people.
Yeah, and like, I mean, I literally just did a Google search, which I've done before. Like, colleges are now filtering applications by one thing, because they're not using SAT and ACT, and that is rigor. Did someone take calculus? And so what's happening is, we're in an environment right now where college application process is demanding this, and our kids that are there now, and I'm not saying it's gonna last forever, and I'm not even saying, and maybe we should talk about whether we should go with the flow of that, but SAT and ACT scores are less important, and now it's about rigor. I actually think you're absolutely right, that it's offering the rigor, because these kids will apply to college and I know they're 8th graders, but that's what they're thinking about. They'll apply to college and they will not get in the right pile from the outset if we haven't given them an opportunity. The kids that want to go to college and want to go to those colleges. And so I just think that as long as we're talking about kindergarten through 5th grade, we've got a lot of middle school families very stressed about this. They're getting to the high school, and the information we got from Emily last week is if you don't, so if you can take access to algebra if you pass, which some of our kids may or may not, but then if you don't pass and we don't give them an opportunity to do integrated math, you have to be selected for an intensive program in the summer. We're just narrowing the funnel and losing the whole, I mean, the idea of everyone having access to something that has become kind of critical in the college admission process. And that's part of our job, I think. If we know it, and we know we're sending them to high school unable to achieve something that is publicly available to us to know is very important. It would, it feels like we should be thinking about it. It's when we have this opportunity.
And I think this is a good discussion to have, but I also think we need to think about, like, when you're right, things shift, right?
Totally.
Okay, so there was a time when it was like, this is the ACT score you
That's
gotta
right.
hit, this is the SAT score. You know what? We learned that doesn't work. That's why they walked away from it. And it's not a good measure, and a lot of school districts were, figuring everything out so you hit that number. That really is something we know is not good for kids. It's not good to say, you gotta hit this number, because that's very different than what we value,
But that
which
trend
is.
lasted for 30 years, and we still have to get kids to college.
Okay, no, and believe me, I mean, so let's not have a slippery argument. I am in favor of children going to college if they want that. So I just, I think we need to, we are all wanting the same thing, which is preparation of kids. I think we just need to think about what that means to us. And some of the things that it has meant before did not serve us well. That is why we went away from them. And if that's the case, that calculus is the new North Star for, everything. I would say, and I think we would say as educators, in terms of building a system, it's still better to build a system around learning standards and rigor and making sure if you hit those standards, let's get to the next set. If you hit those standards, that's actually the infrastructure of what is really the next thing coming, which is competency-based education. That it's not based on the course or the SAT score. It's actually based on what you know how to do as measured by a standard. That's actually if we wanted to kind of latch ourselves on to a trend that is going to be here, that would be the one actually that I would put forward, because, and I welcome you that we would put forward, that's actually where the field is going. You actually don't need to go to college. You actually just need to get a micro-credential in how to do your thing, and then you're going to get hired for that job. So I'm just saying, if you want to really talk about trends.
Let's make sure that every kid in 8th grade has all the standards they need. And if that means we have to teach 4 extra standards a year, and I'm totally making that up, to get them by 8th grade, they have had enough standards that they can enroll in the courses they need, then I think we should be considering about the cadence. We have the luxury of being in one high school district where we know where all the kids are going to go. Unless they choose private school, they're all going to the same place, and we know what they're requiring. And we have an opportunity because we're talking about a pilot, and everybody's pretty excited about it. And we're talking about middle school. We have an opportunity to actually align 3 schools in math. And to me, it seems very obvious that would be one of our priorities and on the mission statement and a goal.
And it is, and we just met.
I think it would be helpful. One, I think this is about more than just curriculum. I think in part you're talking about the pace at which you communicate and teach the standards.
Yes.
A curriculum that includes the standards isn't going to change necessarily because you're teaching it at a different pace.
Agreed.
I do think it would be helpful to have a better, at least for me, a better understanding of the idea of the endpoint that we're trying to work to. I Googled after you said you Googled. The article I found says 19% of high school graduates take calculus, and 5% of colleges require it.
I'm not saying required.
But that's a really,
Yes,
both of
I
those are
totally
really
agree
low
with you.
percentages.
Totally
And that's very different to me than if you want to go to college, you have to take calculus. That tells me that 81% of college students didn't take calculus.
Yes, I was making a different point. I
Okay,
wasn't saying it was required. I was saying that we're talking about a competitive college, looking at applications, and when they're looking at ways to divide it, this can be a critical thing in dividing people.
Right,
into
and it's-
different- and it's not required
and
in
it's-
most schools.
right, and it's, so it's
Totally
nuanced. You're saying for some colleges, I would, and I think about the presentations we had earlier today, we have cohorts of students where the achievement of standard rate is in the 20s and 30s percentage. Like, to me, like, the time and energy that's being put into thinking about curricula, professional development, et cetera, that can bring those numbers up is really like mission critical. And I think that can our students get to calculus by 12th grade is part of that discussion. But if 30% of our students are meeting their grade level standards, the 70% that aren't getting to calculus by the time they get to their senior year of high school unless something really drastic happens. And to me, that's not, I would assume, again, I'm also not a math teacher, I would assume the answer isn't we're just not teaching it quickly enough to these students. I think there are probably fundamental things about how we're teaching it that we need to.
I don't think it's an either or, I 100% agree with you, but as long as we're making these choices, making sure that we make choices that set us up
But
for the kids that can, as opposed to choosing a K-5 curriculum, only to find out we didn't help ourselves in middle school after all.
Well, I think I'm hearing different things, because in part, what I was hearing is, couldn't be the right curriculum, these won't be the right curricula because we're not focused on calculus. Maybe we should pause the curricula evaluation. Like, to me, if our current math curricula are not meeting the basic standard-based needs of our students, like, I'm in favor of addressing that as quickly as we can, while also thinking about these other issues, but I don't think it's an either-or question.
Going back, so to be clear, because I think part of my message is getting infused in Holly's message. The pausing, I think it's a pause to make sure that everyone understands like what the pathways are, what the choices are. Because I don't think that the community still has a good understanding of what the pathways are.
But that's different from our K-5 math curriculum.
So what I'm saying is like, as we're presenting something new and people are gonna be watching this and they're gonna be like, so how does this connect? So and I think Nancy mentioned it, as we're trying to connect this to make sure that this iteration of whatever we're rolling out is communicated in a way that connects the dots, so that if parents are like, my child wants the rigor, I think they're ready for it, I'm gonna take path A. Someone says, you know, my kid is okay, right? I don't wanna push them, I think they're fine where they are, they're gonna take path B. But I feel like right now, people are hearing mixed messages. They're saying, my kid has to go to college, they're not going to college if they don't have this. So I'm going to take path A, but I'm not really sure if this is where I'm going to go. Similar, I signed my son up for math, whatever day it was this week, or last week. And I was like, this is what was recommended. I think I'm just going to keep it because I'm not really sure, and I'm just going to hope for the best. So we're going to, of course, have a conversation with the council and all that stuff, but I saw parents leaving that high school meeting like frustrated. There was lots of curse words. And so I think as much as we can do on this end to make parents feel more confident, and to me, when we're still like, what is A+2, what's B+3, and then we're introducing something else, I think this is gonna just confuse the community even more and frustrate them. So when I say pause, I just meant like, can we sort that first part that we've been doing for the past couple months, can we sort that out a little bit better, connect it and say, and what we presented on whatever day today is, this is how this will connect and this is how it makes sense. That's what I'm saying.
And my only point is, let's make sure that whatever we do in K-5, we should do all the things you said. Get our kids the basic standards. But we should be looking at what the long-term, the K-12 path is, and ensuring that we don't adopt a pilot that everyone really likes, that then we turn around and it doesn't meet our needs.
So I think that it's also, so just want to, again, it's a little bit of a simplification of the work, you know? We're talking about, it's not like you can buy any curriculum that's going to get you there. It's actually about all these other practices. It's about having the right resource that's, you know, aligned to standards. It's about the professional development, the ongoing learning and checking of looking like you saw in those of student work and calibrating to the standard. So there's a lot of complex things that need to happen in every one of these content areas to build the capacity of our staff and our systems and ourselves to actually do a high level of tier 1 instruction so that 80% of our kids actually hit that standard of the grade level. There's a lot of complexity. So I think, and I want to just make sure that you see that, because it's not like answering, there's no way, and I know because I get the questions, there's no way for us to answer a question and make it good, you know? We're gonna have to recognize that these are things that we have to do over time. It's important that you give that feedback. We've got to work on that transition. I've got grown kids. You talk about people in different, this transition into high school is always like, you know, it was even in, you know, great blue ribbon districts or whatever, it's still not very clear. It's confusing because all of them are making these math shifts and trying to get away from classes and actually aligning to standards and kind of, you know, trying to figure out how to put together the standards so it makes sense. So I'm just sharing that I want to be careful and make sure our staff knows that some of this is about just systems change and alignment across districts and changing our paradigm from courses to standards and building capacity. So it's not all stuff, there's just no way that we're going to make a presentation that's like, oh, you figured it out, you know? We're gonna have to do this work and have these critical conversations and invest. This is complex field that we're talking about. And guys, I just wanna make sure that in the dialogue and in the decisions and in the questions, we are accountable to answer your toughest questions. But we are also accountable to say back, there isn't, or anyone that tries to sell you, oh, you know, this is all you need to do. That's just not going to work. So we're going to have to kind of engage in these critical dialogues and recognize that building out that 8th to 9th grade transition, our team just met with the high school with D90. Luis met with the high school. Okay, like what's the data showing? What are we going to have to do? What are we learning from? It's going to take some time. So I just want to level set on the expectation. We're not going to meet that expectation of people having that level of clarity by the next time we come back. You know, it's going to be a process, and it's a systems change. So we got to take the feedback. We always do. That's why we come back and say, hey, here's another way of looking at it. We look at your questions, but we just need to wrestle with the fact that there isn't an answer to the questions, you know, one answer.
I'm sorry, can I add to that really quickly? Because I think that was getting at the point that I was saying is that this is big, and I think to Cherie's point as well, that there's a lot of confusion, and confusion builds fear out in the community. So as we're looking at the K-5 piece, that can instill fear for no reason. And again, fear of math, don't like that. But thinking through the communication component of this, we are piloting these K-5 pieces. Already starting in K-5, what are the pathways? Like, start communicating now. It's going to take more than one. The last presentation that Emily did was great, but people were still confused. It's going to take more communication to get people to understand what that full K-8 math pathway is. What are the standards? What are we looking to do? How are those to actually do give the fundamental building blocks that then let kids be ready to do the advancement to get to IM5, right? So how you communicate that piece, there's the internal work of actually deciding from an educator standpoint what standards we need to meet, how do we best support our students, how do we come out of this with a bunch of kids who actually hit those 5 pathways for equity piece where they're really confident, enjoying math learners. But if you have a bunch of families that aren't understanding it and that are concerned and that are just not, they're worrying about, all of a sudden they're having conversations about college and where does that go? We've lost it. So we have two parts of this. There is the piece of it that is the education component, but we also have to have multiple touch points, to your point, within the community to help them understand this systems change and what it means for their kids. They don't have to understand the full how to teach mathematics, but how to understand what is this system change and how does this benefit your kid?
And I think just to say like it's complicated is not good enough.
Yeah,
Because
and I didn't mean to say that's all. I'm just trying to say that,
Yeah, I think like there are
see the
many
system.
things that are complicated. We're smart people, we can do smart things.
Yeah.
It's just the way in which I'm using an example, I can explain something to Colleen and she'd be like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. Gavin will explain, she's like, okay, kind of getting there. Nancy explains it, she's like, got it, why'd you say it in the first place? So I think, I think the repetition, like bringing it to meet people where they are, right? So you talked, there was somebody else who talked about the parent who's like, this is where I learn math, right? I don't know what my kids are doing. Like the whole line thing confuses me. So I try to explain it in the way that I know how, but I also know this is the way they're learning. So I just think we have to be more creative, and that's why you have people who their whole degree is in change management. And so maybe if there's someone who, that's their expertise, we can have them do it. Somebody who, I know we've been consulting with communications firms, like something, but I just think this whole idea of like, it's complicated, so let's just keep moving. It doesn't feel good. And like I said, as a parent who went to the high school and I was just kind of like, I am lucky that my husband's at the high school, so eventually we will figure it out. And I'm gonna hope that we're doing the right thing. And I'm gonna, I'm gonna be talking to that counselor before school starts. But everyone doesn't like have the information that we have. They can't write you and be like, hey, should I get this? And here's my question. So that's all I'm saying. So it's not, again, I much props to y'all because I don't get what y'all do. I do what I do. But I have the privilege to be able to be like, Dr. Lawrence, can I ask you this question? Holly has the privilege of asking, what's her name that you're talking to? The teacher who was here. Anyway, we have those privileges, but what we're hearing from the community, like in coffee shops, in Jewel, I don't know Jewel, but in the grocery store, wherever we are, this is the feedback. We are getting feedback that there's jargon being used, there's triangles, and they're like, I don't know what those things mean. So like, I'm just saying, let's bring it down so that people can understand, they can feel good. And maybe they're not 100% there, but they know like, I feel like this is what's best, and I feel good, and we can switch and pivot. But right now, people are like, this is a whole different thing. So it's that communication piece that Nancy's talking about.
And on the communication piece, it's two things. It's mechanics and it's vision.
Yeah. Yes. And I think it's okay to say math is an art. Science is based in facts, and everything else is an art, right? Medicine is an art, math is an art. So as we learn and move along the continuum in the journey, we have to take our parents with us and letting them know, hey, we may have to take a left turn as we're gathering more information, because that is the direction of excellence. We thought we were moving in the direction of excellence, but we need to make a pivot because we're still on that journey toward excellence. But that's really just kind of it. We need to take our community along this journey as we strive toward excellence.
Yeah, and I think, so I think that's right about, I hear you saying, Cherie, Venus, others too, like, it's about not just communicating to tell something, but like to teach. And that's not teaching them. Like teaching, when you say take the community on a journey, that's a very different thing. That's like, that's when we do have to talk about the complexity. There is a triangle that we use. That is what we're talking about, Tier 1. And so I guess I just want to say like all fields, like whatever, Cherie, like you said, you do what you do and I do what I do. Like your field has its complexity, and I'm just trying to make sure that as you ask these questions and as we engage in answering them and thinking about what is the community telling us, we also are going to need to tell the complexity of our field too. Because there is a triangle, we do have a theory, you have to do this before this can happen. If you have disproportionalities because you didn't do it right here, and if you have like only 26% of your kids meeting the state averages or meeting the standards, it's because there's a complex thing that needs to happen before you think you're gonna buy the right curriculum or change a course name and get there, so.
I mean, maybe one of the priorities needs to be that the community is comfortable and understands what the math journey is for the kids in District 97, right? I mean, like maybe it just needs to be part of the conversation, like the part of the priorities or the mission or whatever. I don't remember what the stages are in the timeline, but so people do understand what they're, then you can relieve anxiety and make sure people just
Maybe that's a missing piece in our kind of cycle then, is we do have these report outs, that's part of it, is these report outs, but I hear you calling for something else, like a community education or, somehow we need to, or creating some different kinds of tools which aren't like a PowerPoint presentation, but I don't know, I guess I'm just seeking a little bit more direction on what you're asking for.
I'm having a little bit of deja vu because I feel like this is exactly where we landed the last math conversation too, but I think it underscores that confusion persists in the community. And I think that, I think the last PowerPoint, I don't know who said it, like Emily's PowerPoint last time, I found really helpful. I don't know how many people are watching board meetings and are looking at our PowerPoint presentations and things like that. And so, to me, it doesn't sound like any fundamental shift or change. It's more ensuring that, and maybe this is part of getting more fidelity to standards, is making sure that our community understand the standards, understand how they sort of scaffold over time, and understand the different pathways that students have available to them to get to where they want them to go.
Can I share? I have a 5th grader. I sat through that presentation, right? And I am holding back 3 weeks of summer camp registration because I need to make sure that my child gets to, right? So there are decisions that I am making, and I have a lot of information, right? But there are a lot of families who are saying to themselves, I don't feel like I have enough information to make that call that I'm making right now. And summer camp registration, for the record, is this weekend. So, right, so we need to be doing a better job of communicating, because even the anxiety, I have the anxiety, right?
And what is the anxiety about? Can you
Because I'm pulling my child out of 3 weeks of summer camp, full day summer camp. I'm a working parent, right? 3 full weeks of full childcare so that she can go to a 2-hour math class, because it has profound implications for the rest of her educational journey.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
anxiety.
Yep, and I think
That's
also,
a community anxiety.
I just want to add quickly to this, but what people also don't understand is that next year that's not how it's going to work.
Oh.
So that's another piece that's missing. So.
Yeah,
the summer.
but I think what it rings for me is there are different ways of learning, right? So there are some folks that could look at a PowerPoint and are like, yeah, I got it. There are some people who need to sit with it and process and read. I hear people say, I can't listen to audiobooks, I can't take it in that way. So for me, what I was thinking about when you were talking about the roadmap back in the 1900s, when I was getting ready to go to college, my mom bought me this poster, and it was like the roadmap to college. And it was a visual, and it talked about all the things you had to do before college. And that to me was so helpful. I actually put it on my wall because in school, they would say, okay, then you have to you can do the SAT or the ACT. Here are the standards and whatever. And then you have to, and I was like, this is so much. I'm not gonna go to college. That visual for me was you start off, you take these courses. It told you when you needed to apply to college, when early admissions was, the test you had to take, either or, check your college. And then it was this whole big thing. And so as I got ready, my junior year, I was I need to be applying for college right now. I think it was November, December. And then I was and I take these SAT courses, I do this. So I guess I'm saying a visual for the visual learners, because not everyone went to
not everyone has a degree. And so some of the technical language I think is being missed by some folks. So, and to know also that this will change, this will evolve. You know, we might get a flat tire, but this is the I need a roadmap. I need a Google Maps to calculus.
High school, whatever, high school.
Or whatever it is.
Access, high school math access.
And
whatever it is.
so I want to make 2 points. This is also fluid because I think this is the third or fourth, I'm serving my first term on the board, right? So that's 4 years. This has to be the third math curriculum conversation I've had, meaning with change, right? Some of the change was because we weren't, the middle school math teachers got together and made some changes. And then the very next year, they changed it again because they gained more information and they were trying to set kids up for success. This year, now we're learning that the high school made a change. So as the high school makes a change, we likely will have to make a change. So there's a lot of fluidity there in components not always in our control. So I also think that's important to communicate to parents. But Colleen hit the nail on the head with this. So what she said in terms of the profound impact that this decision will have on my kid, not everybody, let me not say that. A lot of people's goals for their children are to go to college. Got that? Part of the rigor in why calculus now is this thing is because there is a significant number of students applying to college. So while 5% of the colleges may only require calculus, the applicants in the pool that those admissions counselors are looking at is, in terms of the number of kids that have taken calculus, the bar is really high now. And the bar is only high because of the pool. Like this past year, for those kids that are seniors now, was the biggest number of college applicants in our history, in our country's history. And that's not going to go down for a couple of years. So parents have that anxiety and that pressure going on. So we need to be aware of that. It's not necessarily that the colleges have changed their standards, it's that the pool has gotten really, really competitive. People are going into massive debt to try to educate our kids because we have been told, every single one of us, that college is the pathway to success. It may not be true, but that is what we are all seeing and believing right now in our society in this moment. And that's a thing, and it's creating a lot of anxiety, and we can't necessarily allay all people's concerns, but we need to make sure that we have these pathways for all kids. That's it. I'm off my soapbox now.
So we're ready to move on to the next.
Wait, so I have one comment that is unrelated to any of this part of the conversation and more focused on K through 5, but I just want to add in the framing priority, the pathway to equity piece that you did. I know this is implicit, and I bet any math teacher, and you're probably all gonna be like, well, of course. That part 2, where you're talking about, we'll let you get onto that one. Sorry. There we go. Work exchange ideas about who can achieve mathematics. You know that's that's my love here. I just want to add in there and be explicit about respecting the math that kids bring. Because you end up so often with kids who are like, well, I can't do math, but you give them a cookie and they can sure split it evenly among 7 kids, right? And they don't recognize that they're doing math. And that math confidence goes along with those building blocks, tied back into this conversation, to get us all the way to confidence and ready to do all that other math as they get older.
And that's what we want to build,
Yeah.
right? That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So thank you for pointing that out.
So
Yeah,
we will think about this conversation and, think about what you've shared and how we need to kind of educate, teach, and map out more clearly than it is right now, much more clearly of what is the kind of the journey, what are the choice points, and maybe, think about how we need to put together that. And also you're saying, putting it together from kindergarten through high school.
How all the pieces
all
fit
the way
together.
to college. So,
and keep in mind it gets trickier as you're doing the middle school redesign too. So that's got to kind of be factored in.
So it, and again, just want to there's no way to figure that out between now and next week, but you're asking, but your role is to ask those questions. It's not clear we want to see that. It could take, that can be the goal we keep coming back to, but it's going to take us some time to get
It's a
to,
marathon.
to actually putting all the pieces together in the absolute right way you're asking us to do, so I thank you for the conversation and the critical, and please don't take anything as I wasn't trying to, minimize anything, that you're asking for, but just actually, I think also sometimes to elevate our field, because sometimes the work of teachers and the work of public school people does get minimized. And, we forget that we also have big theories and big systems pieces that we're trying to move around, staff learning and stuff. So
Definitely not minimizing. I would never be able to teach math.
And
There's zero minimizing on how to.
I wouldn't be able to go to college now.
I don't
No. Well, we love to tell the story that Anna, who's our data, she never took calculus. So it's also about the love and the excitement and the engagement in math. So.
And I don't want to,
Back on
I
the
want to make sure
soapbox.
that you guys know how much we appreciate the work that you put into this,
You're here.
and that's not lost in our
Yeah.
robust conversation.
Yes,
She
right.
doesn't appreciate
Trying to get ahead though of to make it successful, noticing if we don't think of these things on the front end, it's so much more painful on the back end.
Yeah.
And I would just say that we've had a number of curriculum processes and presentations during my time on the board, and I think the thoroughness and thoughtfulness of the process and just you guys coming at this stage so we can have a conversation like this, as opposed to at times in the past, hey, here's what we chose, hope you guys don't have any questions about it. So just really appreciate how deliberative you guys are being, and just the process that you outlined and the level of engagement across the district is really great, so thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We need to get professional clappers for our board meetings.
Those little hand.
Oh, or like thunder sticks like they have when you're shooting free throws. Okay, that takes us to the consent agenda.
I move the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moore,
Yes.
Art Johnson,
Yes.
Kim is absent, Stella,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
consent agenda passed.
All right, next up we have, sorry, I lost my place, I was skipping ahead.
9-1.
We have 9.1, uniform grievance decision for student A. Give a motion on this as well.
What happened to the motion? I remember seeing that.
I'm pulling up.
Ms. Bastos.
I motion that the Board of Education affirms the uniform grievance procedures decision of Superintendent Shaw dated Friday, November 14th, 2024, as it relates to student A, with the superintendent issuing a letter to the grievant to this effect within 5 school days, consistent with board policy 2.260.
Second.
Carney,
Yes.
Kim is absent, Moore,
Yes.
Sterling,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Foster,
Yes.
Art Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, discussion items, 10.1, Title I Innovative Programming Contract Proposals.
So we have Dr. Ebony Lofton coming up. If the board has any questions, she's available to answer them.
I have a couple questions. Sorry for that.
That's what we're here for. We're supposed to answer your questions. That's
No, I just mean because it got a little late.
the process working.
All right, there's a memo in our board packet about this.
Yes.
Do folks have questions?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, go for it.
So thank you, and I'm familiar with both Yemba and Friday Night Plays. Curious though, is this a reallocation? Like what were these funds used for? Or were they kind of not being used? And so what's our trade-off?
So in terms of the Title I grant funds, we weren't fully maximizing them. at the middle school level, so there are no current trade-offs.
Okay.
This is us
Doing more?
using.
And then what is kind of the measure that we, like, and I know we've got the rating system to assess the proposal on the front end, then on the back end, to know whether or not, what the participants are we tracking all of that, those kinds of things?
Yep, so a part of the request for proposal, like the requirements was for the folks who are proposing the programs to actually have an evaluation system that kind of speaks to the effectiveness of the program. We also monitor participants because this is a Title I program, we are actually giving them the targeted students, so we're also in tandem and partnership thinking about these students, but they had to actually, as a part of us rating them, have a pretty robust evaluation design platforms.
And then, well, in the current state of where we are with federal funds, I mean, what happens if these funds don't exist anymore?
So yes, that was a question that we were thinking about too. So the way that the contracts are designed, and thanks to our amazing team, there is a provision for us to, if the funding does not present itself, then we are not necessarily obligated to move forward with the contract as written. So we're keeping an eye on that, and it seems like it's ever evolving and moving and changing. But our hope is that it stays stable and we can go forward with the programs, but if not, there is a provision.
Is it a reimbursement, or are they front the, I don't even know how?
It's typically, I believe, I want to say it happens, it's not reimbursed, it happens in installments, I believe. I don't hold me to that.
Those are my questions.
Yeah, great questions, and we're going to be balancing this, making sure we move forward as we can, but then doing that in a way that, to the maximum extent possible, protects us if things change.
I'm not seeing it, but at a later date, can we see what the other, who the other vendors were?
Sure.
Only because I know that at least one of these programs has a summer program that was not well received and not well attended by D97 students. And so I'm wondering, how do we ensure that it's successful, either through earlier marketing or whatever that looks like? And even, I believe, during the school year, this program has been declining in terms of success and attendance. So just to make sure that we aren't creating a whole new program at which students are not attending.
So that was a part of the model shift, and when we met with our middle school principals, that was something that they were concerned about in terms of, we definitely want to make sure that we're maximizing out-of-school partnerships, but the way that this is designed, and even though our call was for that, when we thought about need, these are actually happening during the school day, much like the model that we use with Girls in the Rise during, so we are hoping, we believe in their social emotional work, and we're hoping that we can kind of make it successful. But again, this is something that we're going to look at. And the funding actually ends August 31st, so these programs will end necessarily in June. So we'll take a look at those program evaluations and kind of see where we are. But yes, you can absolutely see all of the proposals. There were 4 total.
And really, I just want to understand how is it different, because, yeah.
No, that's fair.
So are these 2 programs equipped to do the work that we are now asking them to do? Because I don't believe they've done it to this degree in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're shaking your head yes, so.
Per proposal, based on what we were able to evaluate. And
if they are not, or if we find that we're not getting what we need from them, and it ideally could affect our funding, are we prepared to step in and help make sure that kids get what they need and the evaluation of that, or of these programs, is what it needs to be?
Yep, so contractually we have the ability to pivot.
Okay.
But in terms of leveraging the funding, if we need to think about a different way to think through that, if we're not seeing success in the way that we want to see success, that is a conversation that we'll have at both the school level and with the program folks.
So it's on for discussion this time, so if there's any other questions,
Folks have
let
follow-up
us know.
questions, they can, yep. Okay. Thanks, Ebony.
Thank you.
Next up, National Equity Project Contract for Services.
So Dr. Campbell Tomanoff is coming up for this contract, and we'll bring it forward. This is part of our goal areas are all employee professional learning. Questions for Dr. Kim?
I have a couple questions.
Go for it.
Okay, so I know you referenced in the memo that you worked with the National Equity Project in 2017. I was here when that was happening. And I was trying to think about what was successful and what wasn't, and just wanted to kind of, like, are we building on that? Are we doing it all again? Like, are we redoing some of that stuff? Or, like, I guess, well, how does it relate to the first time we worked with them?
So it's a little bit, shifting a little bit more to a capacity building, training, coaching model. So like on the scope of work, it talks about the executive coaching. We're also looking at building like an equity team because a lot of the people that participated, they participated in the work, but then when NEP left, it was kind of like the work stopped. And so at this time, what we're looking at doing is having more train the trainer models and then capacity building and coaching so that then as they finish the work with us, we can carry the work on. So like, for example, for our March 3rd Institute Day, they are going to actually be working with a team of staff from the district and then training them on the work, and then our staff will actually be putting on a 2-hour training for all of our individual buildings for the March 3rd Institute Day. And then we'll also have additional days where we're putting together a district equity team, but then we'll also have time where they will exclusively work with our senior leadership team. So just different opportunities, but then also time where then we have the opportunity to have like a community meeting. They also work with like some curriculum development. So you'll see there in some of the strategic advising pieces, because our African American Studies course actually came out of that. So we're also looking at trying to see how we can embed that and see if there's some additional work we can get out of some of those pieces as well.
So that was a good transition, because that was my next question. What happens once we've got, whatever, 15 people skilled up, right, trained?
Yes.
Like, what happens next, and how do we measure that, and what are we gonna,
Yeah, so it's really,
and which, by the way, from a professional development, I get it, but it just, how does it then get out around the district?
yeah, and so that's part of why we wanted to get to a point where we had teams of people who were trained up in this work and could actually uplift our equity policy and then carry on this work as we move forward. And so it's part of creating that multi-year professional learning plan so that then this work can be continued. And so these people don't just come in, do the work, and then leave, and then where are we at? And so that it's not this episodic, just you get this over here, and then you have this initiative over here. So that, and then everybody's getting the same thing. So like for our March 3rd, everybody's going to be working from the same deck. They've gotten this training, and then we have this particular focus for this Institute Day. And so then it's the next focus on what we're going to be doing. But like that new district equity team, then that group will get trained up in the work of just inclusive and belonging and just a lot of those core principles, and then just how do we continue to carry that work forward. And so, it may be, we're looking at a camp next summer it's a social justice camp, so then that team, how can they bring that back to the district? So just deeper and deeper into that work, and then their then their next move would be then planning how do they bring it back to the district. But that's also why we also wanted to make sure that, really looking at a holistic view so that it wasn't also just one group one organization that we were looking at working with as well. Because they don't focus on everything that we really need to doing in the district in regard to our equity policy.
And how will we select the teach? It says administrators, teachers, and employee groups. Is it an application process?
So what we're going to start with, a group from our senior leadership team, and then we're also going to start with leaders from the different employee groups, and then based upon how many people we can get from there,
then we'll open it up to additional people. But we originally have some parameters that we were setting about, one, you have to be interested in, in this work and doing this work, and then also about sharing it out and facilitating the sessions. But then you also have to be willing and able to participate in the training sessions. And so there's some parameters around, like, one, can you do the work? Have you demonstrated interest in the work? Then can you participate in the trainings, and are you available? So, schedules can't always be the hindrance. And then forward moving and being able to help us move this forward. So that's part of even the other employee groups and making sure that we have some representation.
Thank you.
So my question is, like, as I'm looking and reading the description and as you're talking about it, it feels separate from what we are currently doing. But I know that in hearing some of the information in our SIP plans and knowing what some of our professional development days look like and what the building leaders are doing, some of this may, certainly not to the degree that we need it to be, but I guess my question is, I want to be sure or ask, how is this integrated into some of the things we're already doing versus adding on to?
Yeah, so it really isn't an add-on. It's kind of like it helps to streamline and it deepens some of the work that we're doing. So like tonight, you heard Mary Ann talk about some of the work that they're doing at the beginning of all of their meetings, right? So that actually came from some of the equity work that we started. So then she just started adding that because she felt like those were important conversations to have. So rather than having just that isolated building doing that work, we're trying to have that in all of them. But that was a conversation, that was work that she felt was important. So we're trying to just say, rather than having these episodic and individual principals choose these things, that we have all of our buildings doing that. But right now it's at a comfort level for individual people to pick things that they're feeling more centered about. And so we want to be able to build up staff within each of the buildings to be able to have those participants. That's why we're looking for leaders in each of the buildings. So the people who are facilitating the sessions on March 3rd, there's 2 to 3 people from every building that are actually going to be the facilitators of those, so that you have representatives from each of those buildings. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is so that it's not just an add-on, but it feels like something that they have comfort in, and that we all know that we're all on the same page.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So if I'm understanding this correct, this is not mandatory, correct?
Well, our equity policy, the participation in the district equity team, or the being involved in this particular but in this particular team or the sessions is not necessarily required. But like March 3rd Institute Day is required. And so everybody will be participating in this training on that day.
What are you asking about?
I guess just like we have experienced a number of parents with concerns about they're not feeling like the restorative practices. There have been numerous concerns about discrimination, and so if it's not mandated, like, people can self-select themselves out of this training. So that's why I was wondering, is it mandatory? Because I know that there hadn't been that training for a while, and so just making sure that everyone hears the same message and not just like the same people, right? Who
self-select.
Yeah,
Yes.
like you're preaching to the choir. You're gonna have a whole bunch of people who believe in equity, and then the people who are like, I mean, this administration is doing a lot of damage in Black and Brown communities, and so and I'm not naive enough to think that there are not people in this community that believe in what this administration is doing. And so if there are people who want to dismantle the equity work that this district believes in and doesn't align with the values, if they say, I'm not going to attend that, are there any is there any way to make sure that people are at least attending? So I was just trying to understand, like, is it like mandatory everybody has to attend, or is it like, I'm gonna do something else?
Yeah, so no, so just like our January Institute Day, the only way that they were able to opt out of our session on the January Institute Day was to not come to work. So similarly, in March, the only way that people would be able to opt out would be to not come to work. So this is moving forward, these are sessions that the entire district participates in during that time. Like even the district office, we all came together in this room and participated in the planned equity session that we hosted. And that'll be the same in March as well, and as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion item 10.3, public participation policy discussion.
So, Luis Rodriguez is coming up, General Counsel for the district.
Good evening, everyone. There's really nothing to put overhead, but just as a recap, last board meeting, I believe Board Member Venus and Board Member Sharit made the request to have a discussion here as it relates to this specific board policy, which deals with public participation. So subsequent to that time, my understanding was there was an interest to have our policy align with District 200s, or at least be something similar to that. So as I think board members Colleen and Holly shared last time, our committee's pretty quick. So we ran it through.
So fast.
Yes, very fast. But we did run it through. There were no issues with the markup. So basically the markup that will be before the board, next board meeting, and there's a link in your executive view, is a markup that will take our policy and pretty much align it with District 200. Last board meeting, board member Gavin had shared, we just want to make sure that we are within the parameters of the law. So I read through the sample model policy, including a number of different public access coordinator decisions, just to make sure that this markup would fall within those parameters, and it does. In addition to that, similar to our existing policy, the board president also has the discretion to adjust during a board meeting as necessary, depending on how many participants we have, or if there's like a specific subject item during a meeting that everyone's speaking to, the board president has the authority to address that. So the markups before you, if you have any questions, I can entertain them now. I think one in particular that might have come up was currently when a public member comes in and signs up for public participation, the information that we're asking for them to provide. I just wanted to share right now our sign-in sheet does ask, but doesn't mandate for a person to leave their address or whatnot. So we can make little tweaks to the policy if you feel it would be better addressed in the markup, or we can leave it as is because we don't mandate it. We just simply request that information. And sometimes why that might be important is because we might want to respond via US mail in the event that they make a statement that the administration could respond to later. But we don't mandate it. And
We ever done that?
Probably satisfied.
we haven't, but the reason I brought that up is because there are points as it relates to,
Maybe by carrier pigeon or?
Maybe, yeah.
And I also think there was a time when they wanted addresses because it was about residents, right? Right, but not now, I don't think that matters at this point.
Yeah, no, the only time I read in the summary that a district got in trouble was where the board actually restricted participation
Yes.
because they didn't provide the address, and this board's
Right.
never done that.
Yeah.
Nothing even close.
Could you, I'm just playing devil's advocate at 10 o'clock at night. Could you restrict someone's participation in public comment if they were not a part of our community?
No, OMA is the Open Meetings Act. The idea and what I would always advise the board is to allow the person their opportunity to speak on whatever subject matter, so long as it's not profane,
Right.
vulgar, and the like.
Okay, just that.
Yeah, I guess the underlying thought is to be as least restricted because the idea of open meetings is open meetings.
Got it. Thank you.
I think Louise nailed it, what we were looking at, which is flexibility, right? Like, we're
That's
not changing anything, we don't have to change anything tomorrow, but we can if the need arises.
Yep.
Yes. Right, so it's not, it provides the flexibility.
Yes.
Are we confident on the profanity and civility pieces? My understanding was that and it's been a while since I looked at any of those cases, but that from a First Amendment basis, we couldn't require that of commenters.
Oh, as far as saying specifically, don't be profane?
The part in it about,
We can request, I
Individual-
don't think we can enforce anything.
I mean, are expected to, I guess, is a little ambiguous as to whether it's a request or a requirement.
Yeah, so from my view, and again, we can mark it up however you see fit. From my view, it's an expectation and a guideline. I think where the brakes can be pumped is when it gets absolutely out of pocket. And it's to the point of where it's absolutely disruptive.
Yeah, right, that I get. Yeah.
The current language is it's a guideline and
If
it's an
somebody wants to
expectation.
be disrespectful in their public comments, though, they are, under the First Amendment, allowed to be disrespectful in their public comments.
Yeah, I guess the other piece to that, as you know, with all First Amendment issues, there's so much gray as it relates to the subjectivity and the like, or even the objectivity of some of the things they may say. So I agree, yes,
Right, yeah.
that's correct.
So, but maybe the operative question here, I mean, we don't need to wordsmith it now. I will just say, like, I'm good with this. I think the flexibility was in the existing policy as well. It was just a discretion to go in the other direction. I liked the existing policy. I sort of like the idea of signaling that we welcome public comment, as much as possible, but I think this gets us to where we want to go to, and I'm also mindful of how long board meetings can be and how lengthy public comment can contribute to that. I would be in favor of us thinking about other ways we might make board meetings a little bit more efficient as well, and I don't know what those are because I really like the discussions that we have. I thought we had a great one tonight, but we had 0 public comment tonight and it's 10 o'clock already. And just speaking for myself, like if I get home at 11:30 on a Tuesday night from a board meeting, one, I don't go to sleep right away and it affects me the next day, like my productivity at work. I don't know if other people have the same experience, but I would, maybe in a future discussion, we can think about other ways that we might try to, set up, maybe our goal is 10 o'clock for board meetings and we think about how we work back from that or something, but I would welcome that broader conversation too.
I agree. I wonder if there's ways of signaling to the community that we respect and value public comment in other ways, meaning like instead of having the board meeting at headquarters, we have our next board meeting at Irving, right? I'm just making it up, but
Yeah.
I think there's other ways of signaling to the community, right, that we
I
have an
totally,
open and transparent process.
yeah, I'm open to any of that and also like engagement outside of board meetings. I also think that it's not just the public comments that are.
I also think Michael would kill us.
Yeah.
He's like, how am I gonna get a video feed?
Don't lay down the gauntlet.
We'd have to talk, it would be a big change.
Yeah.
With,
I'm spitballing.
video wise, like you could do audio and that, but like
Yeah.
it would be a substantial
I'm
step.
So we can be thoughtful about it,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I will say, I mean,
And if what you're saying is reducing our conversation, I'd stay here till midnight in February, so everyone feels like they got a chance at the board table to say what they need to say. So I'm not actually in favor of setting a goal for us to have an end time if that means that we reduce hearing from all the board members. I just I understand things better when all the people in this room, including the admin, get a chance to kind of fully flesh out an issue, personally.
I
but
think
it could
when
be,
it's,
I was just gonna say, it could be something as much as we check ahead to see, is this going to be a big conversation? And we have one item on the agenda instead of two.
Agree with that.
Like
Yeah,
that's-
totally.
Yeah, I'm not prescribing any one
Yeah.
thing. I think there are a lot of, we could probably look at what other boards do and find a lot of ideas for how we might address it. I'm just saying, I would prefer not to be in a meeting till 12 every other Tuesday because I got work in the morning. I got plenty of work in the morning. Like, I don't want to go home and take a nap on Wednesday because I was up too late at the board meeting on Tuesday.
Well, we want to be respectful for all of these folks in the room as well.
Sure.
Like, there's a whole crowd over there that is still here because we're here,
Yes.
so.
Their workday starts
Yeah.
a little bit earlier than mine.
Yeah, so, and I just wanted to, so I wanted to make it explicit because this is not available to the general public at this point?
It's it's just a markup.
Yeah.
The final will be everyone.
That the idea of moving towards, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Venus, to move was to actually set it up so we can still respect public comment, and recognize that we really do benefit, the whole system benefits from having robust public comment, but at the same time, set people up to understand that people were getting frustrated that, they were told 5 minutes and now they've got to cut it to 3, and we're here until midnight because we have, public comment that goes on quite a ways. Anyway, part of this was looking at how do we respect public comment and also respect the people who are working to get this work done.
So I just was saying, the board's insights are always fascinating, but if there's anything specific as it relates to the markup, please let me know.
Sorry.
And I will provide it.
Your insights are fascinating.
I know, I'm gonna use that tomorrow.
I just want to be explicit to the public because they're like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, no, that's good.
So if you have any specific comments, please share them with Luis.
Yes,
and
please.
We'll get
And
it,
make sure they're fascinating.
They always are. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, that takes us to board remarks. Anybody have some?
I just have a kind of like an last question. As we were watching a couple of things came to mind. We were watching the logic models tonight. So it was referenced about VTOP, and I just wanted to know, like, what's happening with that? Like, we were supposed to be, Venus and I think there was a request to attend some of those meetings, and I just don't even know, like, what are the goals and how are they being supported, as they're taking on a lot of emotional labor from the only meeting that we attended. And so just making sure that if they're gonna be used in different ways, like to make sure that they're getting support. And then I would also like to know when we get updates from other schools. Some of those we got like last year, and so just like, and then how do we coordinate? So I heard some really good ideas, but it's been so long, so I'm trying to like piece all of this together. Because it seems like every school, with the exception, it looks like, well, no, they said it, but every school, like, their thing is, their cohort is Black students, and so to me, I just want to make sure that they're being like specific and intentional, and not just like it's the low-hanging fruit to say Black students.
No, it was Black students.
And students,
grade level,
yeah,
IEP.
but it's generally been the same. So just making sure that there's some intentionality, and like, do we get like a summary, right? Because some of those schools we heard from like very early on, and then we didn't hear from Longfellow and Lincoln until today. So I'm very fuzzy on like what was said and how that connects, and if they're still coming together to say, this is what I learned, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing. So just wondering, like, is there?
We get 2 each year.
There's a calendar they put up. February 25th is Whittier. Holmes and Mann are last, and Whittier, I can't remember who Whittier's paired for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's fine.
Because I think this year we're able to get all the schools in, right? Whereas last year we missed 2 schools.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it's been so long. I'm like,
But I agree with you about sort of a summary, because you do forget. And also, it would be nice for that summary to be cumulative, to know what each of the 10 schools are doing, because we are seeing it in highlights, not like, I don't want it to be labor intensive, but I do, like, I can't remember about Whittier, and I know Whittier presented, but like
So maybe we want the PowerPoints in one place so we can just look at them.
Well, when they first introduced the logic models, I think it had like all the schools, and then it was like it cascaded down. So something like that, so that you see like how have test scores improved, like something that we look at each school and like what has been done. So rather it's, has there been a huge decrease in student population? Have we seen test scores improve? Have we had some hiring challenges? I don't know what the metrics are, but just like some way to see like, oh, they're doing really good. They could use a little bit of help. How are they getting support? Because it just feels like very spaced out. And I could go back and watch them, but that will also be like a lot of time.
I do think, so I guess it's two things. Having the presentations housed someplace where we can see them, but then also a little bit of the, here are the metrics we've identified, how did we do? Like outcomes at the end of the school year. Did we meet it? I've seen it in presentations, but not every presentation. This is what our goals were last year. This is how we met or didn't meet them. But everybody does theirs a little bit differently. But we do need to look at outcomes more robustly. So if this is what you plan to do this year for your SIP plan and your logic models, how did you do? Where did you hit the mark? Where did you miss the mark? Why did you hit it? Why did you miss it? We need to unpack that.
Yeah, I think one of the things I hear you saying is, especially as we plan for like this next round, maybe being much more deliberate about the frame of the questions and the frame of the data that you'd like to see. And it sounds like you're saying, Cherie, because this has, been a shift of like, what are we focused on, But now you're saying, okay, so what is that? What's the outcome of that? Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's a perfect kind of in the third year now, like as we plan for next year, every team has like a certain data view, and then you're asking specific questions. So then you can also track like, oh, well, that school said that to that question, and that school says that.
And the model itself has short-term outcomes, long-term.
Yeah.
It has outputs, short-term outcomes, long-term outcomes. So maybe it's just making sure that that framework is presented as part of it. Like I think it was in one of them tonight, but it was really small, so you couldn't actually see what was in it.
Yeah. The other piece is that you guys are talking about best practices among the schools, but it would be nice for us to see that, because if Whittier knocked it out of the park because they did X and Y, then it would be, and that's an identified challenge for Irving. It would be great to see how Irving took that best idea and implemented it to try to get a similar outcome.
Yeah, and I don't think we're using our time in that. I think that you're also suggesting that we come together differently for the schools to teach and learn with each other in a different way, So it's not only reporting to the board, but also how are schools sharing practices. And I think that's another thing that's on our radars, is how do we use our professional learning time too for schools to share with each other that way.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today, and I think one of the things that may contribute, I'm not 100% sure, but it's, I think like the number of people who present, like I'm okay just to have one or two people up there, but sometimes there are like 10 people and we hear from all those people. And so like just hearing like, this is what we did, and then we can ask those questions. I know there's a whole team and I respect all that work, but I think sometimes it's so much like, and then the turtle said, here go the dove, and then I'm like, wait, what? So I think like just making it a little bit more concise. Like I love the stories and all that stuff and the little, we did this in my class, but like just like the high level, like I think Venus was saying.
Yeah, we can think about that. We just want to strike the right balance, and I know you'd agree, like making sure that it's not an administrator's plan, it's our shared school plan. And that's why it's important to have the teacher leadership, especially, there. But I know you'd agree, but maybe we can think about how to streamline it. And then also, how do we actually have the frame and the consistency and the tracking that you're talking about across schools, but also allow each school to have their own flavor and their own, culture and their own quality. Too, so that we don't trade that, because that's, I think, one of the things that makes us really special is.
And you can see that in the SIP plans.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to make it uniform other than the outcomes.
Yeah,
for me to be able to.
Well, and maybe we don't need to confuse the two, that like let the schools to do their individual, right? But then what I'm looking for from the district is that synergy across, right? That's what I feel like I'm missing, and that's okay because we haven't gotten all of the presentations, right? But I would expect that the district would come back to the board after we get all of those plans and say, here are the synergies across all of the schools, here's what we're doing to make sure that they're cross-pollinating across whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think that sounds really right. And so in our practice and how we're getting them together, but then also how's that showing up on the Illinois school report card, right? How is that actually showing up in the publicly reported data? I think so. We can think about how do we report into those frames. That feels right and like the right next thing for us to do.
I have, you guys, maybe Venus and I touched on this for 1 second. I do think if we're gonna kind of put it all together, we should also be really careful with the language. Like some of the language today was like, and some of the kids in our cohort aren't managing unstructured play, was an example. And it's, well, I mean, kids all the time don't manage unstructured play. Like it's not just the cohort that doesn't manage, right? So some of it, especially if all of our cohorts are Black students with free and reduced lunch, like I don't think we want to send a message that there's a deficit with these kids, right? And so just kind of being really careful with the language that, you know, if you were to take all our kids, you would have a group of them that struggle with unstructured, a group that struggle with reading, a group that struggle with math, social, emotional, but because we're talking about this cohort does not mean that these students are the only ones that have these challenges.
In fact, that's the whole point.
Right.
Is that, you know,
Right.
there are these challenges, and so
Right.
how do we make sure we change the school?
Yes.
And change us?
Right.
Because it's actually not the kids that have the issue, it's ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and the system that we give them, so, yeah, 100%. Great feedback.
So I do have a comment that is tangential to this, kind of looking at data framing and using shortcuts, like that we were talking about earlier with calculus. I was baffled as registering for high school this past week to find that they use a shortcut of if you are taking art, you have to take study hall. If you are taking orchestra or performing arts, you can take that instead of study hall. We do not have control over the high school, obviously. However, it made me rethink all the conversations I had in 5th grade with teachers about what to take in 6th grade. And I would like, this is a longer term piece, this is not an immediate action piece, and it's part of kind of a middle school redesign piece. I would like to look at how we are framing arts in middle school and make sure we are not setting one art as the art of the kids who don't need study hall, as that we're not using art as a way to say, you know, if you want to do the smart thing, take orchestra, or maybe take performing arts. But you know, if you need a little something more chill, take art, because that is devaluing art, and students who really do actually passionately love art in a way that I find really inappropriate. And I'd like to see, it would be interesting to see data of who is taking each of those and how that is traveling through, and if there's any bias that's coming into the system to kind of shuffle kids into art versus orchestra versus performing arts based on academics rather than on their interest.
I will comment on that only from anecdotally. I do know that speech, drama, and debate was hard and art was easy, and Madden's like, my friends all went to art, but I have no artistic ability, so I'm in speech, drama, and debates today.
But this is what I'm saying is
Yeah,
art shouldn't
you know,
be.
that's my point. No, like, anecdotally, right? Like that's
should be
where,
a challenge.
And
for
timely
every
for
kid.
the middle school redesign,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
for the schedule, because I brought this up, this like kills me that they can't take, right?
Yeah.
No, I agree. I was agreeing. I was like, my kid thinks art's really hard. This other kids think it's easy. They think speech, drama, and debate's really hard,
Yeah.
right? So it might not be. It might be kids' choice too. Kids' voice, kids' choice.
I will say my experience has been that students were encouraged to take
Okay, understood.
orchestra, and so I feel like this is worth a look.
Yeah, no.
Look
I
at the data
totally agree.
on it and go back.
I have one comment. I am curious to better understand how Spanish language immersion aligns with our equity policy when we're talking about providing an opportunity to 120 kids in the district. And I don't know when that would be timely for the agenda, but I'd like to better understand
that opportunity that we're providing to a very, very small group of children in the district.
So just to understand, are you asking maybe how do we provide the opportunity to more students?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not to not provide it, but to
Correct.
expand how we provide it.
Or not provide it, or it would, if that was the
I mean, if
answer?
we were providing music education at only one of our schools, would that be in line with our equity policy? Is my question.
I think they're very, Spanish immersion versus, like we provide Spanish to all of our schools,
Yes.
right?
But this
Spanish
is a
immersion
different.
It's a very different level of Spanish.
It's a different curriculum that we're providing to a small subset of our children.
And we would, I just want to make sure like, you know, we have a value around music. We make sure that all of our students have access to music. My understanding would be that we have that same value around multilingualism and being bilingual. And so then I just want to make sure that the question would be like, how do we provide multilingual or bilingual education to?
And I think probably more specific, I mean, yes, and I think that's one of the things in the portrait process that was identified as an end goal, right, is we want bilingual students. And I think part of that is like looking at Spanish in our schools, and is it moving our kids towards that to the degree that we want it to? I think Colleen is asking another question, which is in some ways more of a historical question than a you question, because this predates you significantly, but maybe, you know, if we assume that Spanish immersion, the opportunity to be in a Spanish immersion program is an educational positive for D97 students, how is it that we're offering it at one school and that most kids in D97 don't have an opportunity, and to some students in one school, right, not to all students in the school.
Correct.
And you know, if you go to Irving or Whittier or Holmes or whatever, it's not an opportunity that you have available to you.
But I think there's a threshold question of whether or not we actually have a community desire to have it available to all students, or just to write, I mean, like, right, so I think that,
I think taking it for all, like, I don't know that all students want to take it. Available is a different question though, right? Like, should all students have, and families have that as an option?
yeah, I mean, those should be available for all students, when all students are interested, and whether or not it's feasible, right, is the other thing, right? Because
Totally.
if you're doing it based on some, right, if you want it available to everyone, you have to have a bilingual teacher of every grade that
Every
fluctuates
subject.
based on how many people want to take it versus
Every
don't.
grade, every subject, because we're
Right.
talking about immersion.
I don't know that it is feasible,
Yeah, that's my point.
but I do think it's a question that's worth exploring and just thinking about, because it has struck me as sort of odd in a district that talks about like equitable access so much that we have a niche program that's available.
There have been many historical efforts to eliminate the program that have,
I feel like it's a hornet's nest a
and
little
have
bit, but,
met much opposition from the families that are.
and Colleen's about to go off the board, yeah, so
Oh,
she's gonna poke it and run.
good, excellent.
Anyway, any other board remarks?
Why would we do that? She just finished the mic drop. We're done.
We have board assignments, FAC has nothing to report, FORC,
No.
PTAC?
Yes, we did meet. We met last week and it was a really great meeting.
Board
And
or PTAC?
Because I do both, right? PTAC met last week.
No, I was like, board.
Jung and I are the board representatives. We have now a committee with 4 teachers, 4 community members that are parents. We've got us and administrators, and we had a really great conversation about MTSS. And then Ushma and Jung and I were all excited. We had like more conversations, and so we've got a nice agenda to do some work over the next 3 months, and then and there is a part where we will come back to the board because as everyone's kind of relaying some groundwork, we might ask for like a deliverable, so to speak, from this group, right? Is it assistance with community engagement around restorative practice, whatever, I'm just pulling something out. But if we want a deliverable, I think this group is really motivated and it was like, I was virtual, but Bushra said there was hugging afterwards, like it was very.
Goodness.
I got a hug, it was the best day
Very
in a long time.
positive meeting, and so, and everyone on the committee was really kind of, yeah, it was good.
Should we add hugs at the end of our agendas?
I mean.
They have to be
They
authentic,
have to be
otherwise they don't
spontaneous,
count.
yeah, okay.
No performance.
D97 Sustainability Task Force, I don't think we have anything to update right now.
I'm just gonna add in that we should perhaps have an internal quick touch base on what federal changes in policy might mean, if anything, to our.
I mean, the short answer is who knows
Yes,
at this point.
short answer is who knows, however, at least I think we can identify areas that might be impacted, so we're at least ready to.
As somebody who's doing this in his
Yeah.
job right now, I'll tell you, but I'm in
Yeah, well, this is
favor,
why.
but I'm in favor of having a meeting.
Yeah,
Just, also just to generally touch base.
yeah.
Like you're walking in the dark.
IGOV,
Anything on IGO?
Oh,
Oh,
I'm we had our last IGOV meeting, we had a guest from the League of Women Voters, and so we talked about candidacy and encouraging people in the community not only to vote, but also to run, and what that looks like, and what we can do to encourage that. And the League of Women Voters is having a candidate forum on Thursday at 7 o'clock.
At the library, right?
This Thursday for
is
the.
it in person or is it
By
virtual?
Zoom.
Yeah.
And it's for the D97, at least the one I'm aware of is for the D97 candidates.
How are people gonna erupt into fistfights if it's by Zoom?
That's a feature, not a bug.
Thank you. Where does that take us? PTOC, I think you guys are meeting next week.
That's right.
Collaboration,
Nothing to report.
OPEF,
I did not get to attend.
okay.
bad, follow up.
Oak Park River Forest Community Council,
That's me. We had a meeting, I think last week, where I was able to join. And we talked about the changes to the math curriculum, and the department head and the head for curriculum spoke to us.
And you didn't want to share it earlier, all the stuff in there?
Jung is at red and she's not here. Our final item is just a quick review of next business meeting's agenda. I guess it's all in this agenda, so if there's any additions or comments, I think the public comment policy needs to go on here.
Yeah, but we can add the public comment policy, and we also will be moving the staffing projections actually to the following meeting.
Okay,
That won't be ready.
anything else on this?
It's always the opportunity to bring math back to the table.
You gave some really good insights and feedback. We've already been exchanging what we're gonna do with it, but we'll need more time than February 11th.
Let's churn the waters again.
But yeah, no, thank you for the good dialogue. Appreciate it.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Anyone opposed? I dare you.
I realized you sent out in a board.
Just to be contrary.